Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Week later, training ground 7. Naruto and Sasuke jumped back from each other, only to charge in again and engage in a fierce taijutsu bout. A few yards away, Sakura was dodging multiple shuriken and kunai that were being thrown at her by Kakashi and about 10 clones. Ducking under a roundhouse kick from the last Uchiha, Naruto caught the ankle of the offending appendage and threw the dark-haired teen away. Sasuke flipped in midair and landed on the surface of a tree before dropping back to the ground. "That's enough for now," said the blonde of Team 7 as he checked the position of the sun. "We need to start making our way to the academy. The first part of the exams are about to begin." Sasuke nodded and walked back over the blonde as Sakura and Kakashi finished as well. Once all of them were together, Kakashi began leading them through the streets of the village. In the short week they had spent training, Team 7 had grown in both skill and camaraderie. The copy ninja had ceased with his usual tardiness, arriving at the time he instructed his students too, and the fruits from the extra time together were already showing. Sasuke, while he had not fully mastered his lightning affinity, had already learned the two Raiton techniques Kakashi had shown him. Also, the dark-haired genin had made sufficient progress with his Sharingan. He could now trap enemies within a genjutsu with eye contact alone, though that contact had to be maintained for a few seconds to allow the illusions to take hold. Another thing they had worked on were a few of his clan's fire techniques, and Sasuke was proud to say he had added another 2 of those jutsu to his arsenal. It was Sakura, though, who truly blossomed over the week. She had finally begun to prove herself worthy of the top kunoichi title she earned from the academy. It was tricky in the beginning for her to grasp what Kakashi was teaching her, but they had discovered quickly that she didn't learn through trial and error or natural genius, like her teammates did. Instead, she preferred to study and get a full grasp of understanding from a theoretical point of view, before actually attempting things herself. So to test just how effective this method of learning was for the Pinkette, Kakashi had given her a scroll containing in-depth details on a basic Doton jutsu, the earth-style wall, and had her memorize everything she could about it before having her perform the technique. The results were astounding. On her first attempt at performing the jutsu, she had managed to raise a wall out of the earth a good 4 feet tall, though it left her considerably drained afterward. With her chosen method of training in hand, Sakura had taken every scroll their sensei gave her and set to memorizing everything she could from them, and when she wasn't reading, she was exercising on the surface of the lake to help increase her reserves. "Well team, this is it," said the silver-haired Jonin as he glanced over his shoulder. "I want you all to know that no matter how you fare, I'm proud to call you my students." The 3 genin stood that much straighter at the praise their sensei gave them, although, "I have a feeling that you all will do quite well in these exams." "Of course we will," said Naruto. Despite having dropped the mask of the idiot, his old confidence was still present. "I wouldn't be surprised if all of us made Chunin once this is over." Kakashi chuckled slightly while Sasuke and Sakura nodded in agreement with their teammate. "I'm sure you will, but no matter how this plays out, remember the first thing I taught you guys. Those who ignore the rules are trash," began Sakura. "But those who abandon their comrades," said Sasuke, "are worse than trash," finished Naruto as the team arrived outside of the academy. Despite being the site for the first part of the Chunin exams, the field around the building was decidedly empty. "Well, this is as far as I go," Kakashi said as he turned to his team and gave them an eye smile. "Now show them all what Team 7 is capable of." "Hi," chorused the genin as Kakashi disappeared in a cloud of smoke. "Alright, time to put our plan into action." Turning to his pink-haired teammate, Naruto waved his hand to the side. "Sakura, if you would do the honors." "On it," she said as she formed a short chain of seals. Finishing in the round seal, the images of the 3 genin shimmered slightly as the cloaking genjutsu took effect. Once the illusion had taken hold, the 3 looked exactly as they did before the week began, clothes and all. There, now let's just hope no one is stupid enough to try and break the illusion. "Don't worry Sakura, if they do, I'll be able to sense their chakra spike before they can finish the process." Both Sasuke and Sakura nodded at their blonde teammates' words. It had surprised them when Naruto revealed that he was a natural sensor-type shinobi, something that wasn't all that common in Konoha. "Tell me again why we're hiding our true selves under a genjutsu," said Sasuke, as they made their way into the academy and started heading towards the third floor. "Because Sasuke, deception is a ninja's greatest weapon, as we are now people will be more likely to underestimate us, making it that much easier for us to defeat them. I get hiding our skills and abilities, but why hide our appearances? It would be just as effective to have our enemies know to be wary us. I thought we took care of that whole, I must uphold my clan honor thing," mused Naruto, getting a half-hearted glare from Sasuke. "It's not my fault my clan is naturally battle-ready, and I am no different," said the dark-haired genin with a huff. "He says that like it's supposed to be a good thing," Naruto whispered to Sakura, getting a giggle out of the pinkette and a scowl from the dark-haired teen. "Keep talking dope. One of these days that mouth of yours is going to get you into something you can't get out of." Yeah, whatever team." "Alright you two, that's enough, we have an exam to take, remember," said Sakura, using a tone one would normally use to scold children, causing the two boys to sulk slightly. "Now let's go, I4. One don't want to be late," she said as she walked past the two sulking shinobi and started down the hallway. "Since when did she become the leader?" whispered Sasuke, causing Naruto to shrug. They both froze though as Sakura turned around and glared at the two of them. "What was that, boys?" "Nothing," the two frightened shinobi said as they kept walking. It didn't take them long to reach the third floor, but when they did, it was to find a large crowd of genin standing in front of a door being blocked by two older genin. "Hey, let us in," said a bun-haired girl as she helped who appeared to be her teammate up. Naruto raised an eyebrow and met his teammate's gaze, both of them giving a slight nod. Without so much as a look back, the three members of Team 7 moved to the other side of the hallway and continued on towards their real destination. As the three rookie genin walked off, a white-eyed genin watched with a frown on his face. "So that is Team 7, thought the boy upon seeing the Uchiha fan on Sasuke's shirt. For a team that's being trained by the famous copy ninja Kakashi, they don't appear to be all that strong. It wouldn't matter anyway, fate has already determined the outcome of these exams." Turning back to his own team, he gestured for them to take another route towards the exam room. It didn't take long for the disguised Team 7 to reach the actual exam room, but once they did, they were blasted with killing intent from the hundreds of genin already in the room. Naruto and Sasuke didn't show any signs of being affected by the mass amounts of killing intent, Naruto because part of his training with Jiraiya was to increase his tolerance to the feeling, and Sasuke because of his pride, though he shivered slightly on the inside. Sakura, however, began to shake a little bit, not having much experience fighting off the feeling. A reassuring glance from her blonde teammate eased her nerves and helped her to get a hold of herself again. The team was just about to move to an unoccupied corner when a very loud squeal sounded behind them. Before any of them had a chance to blink, a blonde blur collided with Sasuke's back, nearly knocking him to the ground. "Oh Sasuke-kun, I've been waiting for you to show up," gushed Ino as she rubbed her cheek against Sasuke's, much to the Uchiha's dismay. "I was beginning to think your sensei didn't let you enter, though that would probably be because of forehead and the dobe over there." Sakura bristled at the insult to her skills as a kunoichi, but surprisingly, she wasn't that bothered about Ino rubbing up against Sasuke, though that irked her in a different way than it had before. "Wow, I guess those sessions with Anko had more of an impact than I first thought, Inopig. I would get off Sasuke if I were you. I don't think he's enjoying having your fat ass weighing him down." Ino's face went red at the jab to her figure, but then her mind fully processed what Sakura had said, or to be more precise, what she hadn't. She didn't say Sasuke's name with the kun suffix. What the hell happened to her? Has she given up on trying to get Sasuke-kun to love her? Not liking being out of the loop, Ino voiced her thoughts to her former friend and rival. "What's with you, Sakura? Why did you say Sasuke instead of Sasuke-kun? Have you given up on trying to win him over?" Though she was happy that she had one less competitor for the heart of her crush, she was a little upset that she had lost the rivalry with her one-time friend. Sakura also felt the loss of the rivalry, but knew she had to try and help her former friend focus on her career as a kunoichi, lest she end up dead before she turned 14. "Yes, Ino, I have given up on Sasuke, and so should you." Ino's eyes widened slightly at the bold statement, but Sakura continued undeterred. we're not little girls anymore, we're kunoichi, and we need to start acting like it. I'm not saying we can't like someone and try and pursue them, but obsessing over that person to the point where we allow ourselves to become weak is not what we should be doing. If we like someone, then we should hone our skills so that we can live long enough to act on our feelings. I don't know about you, but that's what I'm going to do. I am going to become strong enough so that I can protect the ones I care about and so that I can live a long and prosperous life. Both girls were so intent on the other that neither noticed Sasuke perform a substitution with Naruto. Naruto shot a glare at the Uchiha but sighed and let it go. If he had to deal with fangirls as much as Sasuke did, he probably would have done the same. So instead he turned his attention towards his fellow blonde as a look of complete and utter shock took over her features before it slowly morphed into one of far-off thought. Sakura finally noticed that Ino was holding on to Naruto instead of Sasuke and had to fight to keep her laughter under control. She lost that battle the moment she saw her fellow kunoichi unconsciously snuggle deeper into her blonde teammate's back, causing the pinkette to giggle behind her hand. Ino was stunned into silence as she listened to Sakura talk. She had heard a similar speech from her father and mother on many occasions, but there was something about hearing it from her childhood friend that had a larger impact on the blonde kunoichi. Her mind began to wonder as she mulled over her friend's words. She had always thought of herself as a strong and proud kunoichi, but as she thought things over, she began to question her belief in herself. Unconsciously snuggling closer to the body she was holding onto, the blonde kunoichi noticed something that was different from before. That's weird, Sasuke-kun always had a good body, but this body feels so much more defined and warm. I feel like I could just snuggle here all day. Sighing in content, she closed her eyes and snuggled even closer into the back of the person. Naruto's mouth twitched into a small smile as he saw how content Ino was, but he figured he would spare her the endless teasing she was likely to receive should she be found snuggling into him. Ino, I'm glad you're so comfortable, but do you mind getting off? There is still the matter of the Chunin exams to deal with. He trailed off as the platinum blonde's eyes shot open at the sound of his voice. Snapping her head around to look at the face of the person she was currently snuggling into, Ino saw the deep sapphire pools that were Naruto's eyes looking into her own from a distance of about an inch. For a few seconds the two simply looked at one another, before Ino blushed scarlet and jumped off her fellow blonde's back, just before her teammates walked into the room. So you guys are taking this stupid test too, eh? What a drag, said the lazy voice of Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru turned to his female teammate and noticed how flustered she looked. What the hell happened to her? The lazy genius brushed it off for the time being as something to do with Sasuke, though he made a note to look into it a little later. Naruto smirked as he looked at his fellow deadlasts from the academy. Hey Shikamaru, Choji, you two still watching the clouds and eating instead of training? The Nara genius sighed, but a small smirk could be seen on his face. Yeah, the only reason I'm here is because Ino dragged me here, and my mom would have killed me if I refused to enter. Troublesome women. Choji merely kept on eating his chips, though he managed to get out a short "Hey Naruto" in between handfuls. What was that, Shikamaru? Asked Ino in a threatening tone, her lazy teammate's comment finally knocking her out of her flustered state. Shikamaru simply shrugged and muttered troublesome under his breath, much to the Ino's annoyance. Well, what do you know, said a boy with a dog on his head and wearing a fur-lined jacket. Looks like all of this year's rookies are taking the exams. I wonder how far all of us will get. The 6th genin turned to see Team 8 walking up to them. Kiba was wearing a cocky smirk as always, Shino was his usual stoic self and Hinata looked as shy as ever. Naruto smirked at his fellow genin. Speak for yourself, dog breath. I don't know what'll happen to you, but I plan on being at Chunin once this entire ordeal is over. That is a bold claim, Naruto-san, said Shino with his hands in his pockets. Many of the genin here are the best that their villages have to offer. Defeating them will be no easy feat. Naruto's smirk never wavered as he glanced over the crowd of assembled genin. Shino's eye narrowed behind his sunglasses as his insects started going crazy, telling him to be wary of the blonde genin. There is something different about him, thought the Abure mayor. The stoic genin wasn't the only one to notice the change in the blonde. Shikamaru's mind was working overtime to try and understand what could make the blonde so confident in himself. He could tell that the confidence the boy held himself with was different from their time at the academy. It wasn't a cocky or arrogant confidence like Kiba, but instead it was that of a person who understood the depth of their skill and power and wasn't afraid to prove it. Hello and Naruto Kekuen, stuttered Hinata as she looked at her secret crush. Her face flushed when the blonde looked her in the eye, his patented fox smirk in place. Hey Hinata, I hope you've been keeping your mutt of a teammate in line, he said, causing the Inuzuka air to growl low in his throat. Hinata looked down and started poking her fingers together as she stuttered out an answer. You know, you guys should really keep it down, said a genin with glasses on. You are the rookies fresh out of the academy, right? And what if we are? Asked Sasuke as he glared at the newcomer. Hey, I'm just trying to help you guys out. Though you might want to keep an eye on those guys over there, he gestured to a team of older genin behind them. They all looked annoyed as they watched the 9 rookies. They're from Amagakure, and they have really short tempers, especially when they're on edge. Not that you guys would know that, after all you're just rookies. So I take it you have taken these exams before, mister? Trailed Naruto, fishing for a name. Oh sorry, my name is Kabuto Yukushi, and yes I have taken these exams before. In fact this one will be my 7th attempt. He finished lamely as he scratched the back of his neck. So in other words, you suck, said a smirking Kiba while Akamaru barked in agreement with his master. Or it means that these exams are harder than we first anticipated, Kiba, said Naruto, surprising his fellow rookies, with the exception of his team. Our sensei always tells us to look underneath the underneath, so do not make the foolish assumption that the way you see things is the way it actually is. Doing that will be your downfall. Although, something doesn't feel right about this guy, his chakra reserves are almost on par with Kakashi-sensei's and the way he's suppressing it requires a high level of control. Whoever he is, he's no ordinary genin. Anyway, said Kabuto, bringing the attention back to him, since you guys are rookies, I'll share some of the information I have with you. Reaching into his hip pouch, the older genin brought out a deck of orange cards all with a green border. These are ninja info cards. They contain all of the information I have gathered on the exams, including information about specific participants. Even you guys are in here. What about a boy named Gaara no Sabaku of Sunagakure? Do you have any information on him? Asked Sasuke, though it sounded more like a demand than a question. Naruto had told his team of his suspicions about Gaara, except for the fact that he was a Jinchuriki, but Sasuke wanted to see if this boy had information that they didn't. Of course, is there anyone else you would like some information on? Asked the silver-haired teen as he drew a random card out of the deck. All of the members of Team 7, the Rookie 9, whirled around to see a boy with poopyless white eyes just like Hinata standing with 2 other genin. The girl was wearing a pink Chinese-style shirt and dark green pants with her hair up in 2 buns. The other boy was wearing a full-body green spandex suit with orange leg warmers and his red headband around his waist like a belt. The members of Team 8 and Team 10 each wondered why the boy would want information on Team 7, while the aforementioned team narrowed their eyes at the boy. Before any of them had a chance to voice their curiosity, Kabuto had already drawn the 3 extra cards and placed them next to the card that held Gaara's information. Well then, let's begin with Gaara no Sabaku. The 12 assembled genin turned towards the kneeling genin and watched as he spun the card with his finger before a small poof of smoke covered the card. The smoke cleared to reveal a picture of a red-haired teen with lifeless seafoam green eyes and the kanji 4 love tattooed on his forehead. Let's see, his mission history is a little vague, but it seems that he has completed 8 C-rank missions and, whoa, a B-ranked mission as a genin, very impressive. His teammates are his older siblings surprisingly, Temari and Kankuro. I don't know who his sensei is, but it says that he was personally chosen by the Kazekage to lead his children's squad. It's just a rumor, but it's said that he has returned from every mission he has ever been on completely unscathed. All of the genin who had heard the information on the young redhead immediately stiffened. This boy had taken on a B-ranked mission and returned from it without even a single scratch? Just how strong is this guy, was the general thought process of the genin, with the exception of our favorite blonde hero. Completely unscathed, huh? I have a feeling his bijou had a hand in that, thought the blonde before his eyes refocused on Kabuto. A ninja's mission record is classified information that only the Kage and the higher-ups of a village's military are privy to. How the hell did this guy get that kind of information on someone who isn't even from our village? And if he has that kind of information on a foreigner, His thoughts trailed off as Kabuto revealed the information on the next card. Next up, Sakura Haruno of Kanahagakure, said the bespectacled shinobi. Mission history is pretty average for a genin. She and her team have completed 20 D-rank missions, and only 2 C-ranks, nothing special there. Her teammates are Sasuke Uchiha, the last loyal Uchiha in Konoha, and Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last from the academy. Overall there is nothing special about her, just your average run-of-the-mill genin. Although I do have a note stating that she has begun to study the art of medical ninjutsu, that's something one doesn't always see in a genin. Sakura's eyes narrowed at the silver-haired genin. How the hell does he know I've been studying to become a medic nin? Kakashi-sensei only recently added that information to my Kunoichi file, and I haven't told anyone else. Something is definitely not right here. Looking at her teammates, she saw that they too had their eyes narrowed in suspicion as Kabuto prepared the next card of information. Now for her teammate, Sasuke Uchiha. Niji's ears perked up as Kabuto began reading off the information. Mission records are the same as his team, so let's look at his skills. He is proficient in the use of his clan's personal taijutsu style. His skills in genjutsu could use some work, but his proficiency with katan techniques is well above average, as to be expected of an Uchiha. Well, this is interesting. It seems that he also has a... The older genin was cut off as a spike of killing intent came from the last Uchiha. Using the distraction his teammate provided, Naruto swiped Kabuto's entire deck of cards, as well as the ones he had set on the floor. Slipping the deck into his hip pouch, Naruto planned on sending the cards to the Hokage as evidence against the elder genin, but only after making a complete set of copies for himself and his team. Sasuke and Sakura had seen what Naruto had done and smirked themselves. The information on those cards could prove to be invaluable during the exams, and they didn't plan on letting them go to waste. Spike of chakra from the front of the room caught Naruto's attention as he turned just in time to see a large cloud of smoke appear. "Alright you bitches and bastards, shut up and pay attention," shouted a deep voice from inside the cloud of smoke. Many of the participants jumped in surprise at the sound of the voice, but a small handful retained their composure. The smoke cleared away to reveal a burly man wearing a large black trench coat with a group of Chunin behind him. "My name is Ibiki Marino, the first proctor of the Chunin selection exams, and as such I would like to welcome all of you to hell." Naruto smirked as he watched almost every single genin shiver in fear of the scarred jounin. "So Ibiki the mind sadist is our proctor, huh? This exam just got a whole lot more challenging." Glancing over at Sasuke and Sakura, he saw that while they didn't show any outward signs of being intimidated, their body language spoke otherwise. "Guys," he whispered so that only they could hear, "don't let him get to you." Ibiki is the head of the torture and interrogation division. He specializes in psychological warfare to extract information from people. So long as you keep your cool and retain a level head, you shouldn't fall for his tricks as easily as others, but you still need to keep your wits about you. He is known as the mind sadist for a reason. The two genin of Team 7 nodded in understanding with their teammates' assessment of things. Everyone's attention was brought back to the burly jounin as he began barking out orders. "Now everyone is to come forward to receive a number. That number will represent where you will sit for the written exam. Now move it, I'm a busy man and I don't have time to deal with pathetic wannabe ninja." The second the man finished, all of the genin were pretty much tripping over one another in order to get a number and avoid pissing the man off any more than he already was. It only took a few minutes before everyone was assigned a number and had taken their respective seats for the written exam. All of the members of the soon-to-be dubbed Konoha 12 were scattered throughout the rows of desks, with Naruto and Hinata being the only ones next to each other. Ibiki stood at the front of the room as the Chunin sentinels finished passing out the written exams. Once all the papers had been distributed and the sentinels had taken up their positions around the room, the head of the T&I division began the first stage of the Chunin exams. "Now that everyone is ready, we can begin. Before you flip your tests over, there are a few rules that I must explain. First off is that each of you will begin the exam with a full 10 points. Also, this test is based on a subtraction system, meaning you lose a point for every question you get wrong. The second rule, this exam is a team test, so whether you pass or fail is determined by the total number of points you and your teammates have at the end of the hour." Several of the genin paled slightly as the implications set in, but unfortunately for them, Ibiki wasn't quite through. The third and possibly the most important rule: should any of you worthless maggots be caught cheating by the sentinels, you will have 2 points automatically deducted from their score. Now if everyone is ready, you may begin the exam. The sound of shuffling paper filled the room as the rattled genin turned over their tests, only for many of them to panic as they noticed the difficulty of the questions. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the fourth and final rule for this test: should anyone receive a 0, whether from the sentinels or at the end of the exam, they and their teammates will automatically fail. The temperature in the room dropped significantly as everyone felt the weight of the pressure on their shoulders. Your hour begins now, good luck, you'll need it. With that said, Ibiki and the sentinels sat back to enjoy the show they were about to be treated to. Naruto narrowed his eyes in concentration as he looked down at his test and read over the first question. This is an advanced cryptogram that requires extensive knowledge of village-to-village codes. There is no way a genin should be able to answer that question. But they should know that no ordinary genin would have the ability to answer this kind of question, so why put it on the test? What are you playing at, Ibiki? Sasuke bit the end of his pencil as he read over the test and came to the conclusion that he couldn't answer any of the questions. Hell, well, isn't this just great? I can't answer a single one of these, he thought with a small shake of his head. The only people who even have a chance at answering any of these questions are people like Sakura. On top of that, what's up with the sentinels watching us? It's almost as if they expect us to cheat, thought both males of Team 7. Sasuke smirked slightly at the intricate trap the proctors had weaved, but pushed that aside as he activated his Sharingan and began scanning the crowd for someone who looked like they knew what they were doing. All around the room, the stronger genin began using different methods to cheat off of the people around them. Kiba and Shino were using their respective animal counterparts to gather answers, while the two Hyugas in the room activated their own dojutsus and began copying from the people around them. Sakura and Shikamaru were using their natural smarts to answer the questions, while Choji's hand moved at the exact same time as Shikamaru's, thanks to the Nara's Shadow Jutsu. Tenten was using mirrors she had set up beforehand to get the answers and then pass them to Lee. Ino was waiting for Sakura to finish answering the questions before she used her clan's mind jutsu to get the answers from her. So that's your game, Ibiki, thought Naruto. Well, I might as well make my move before the weaker ones start getting caught. Extending his senses, Naruto felt out the chakra levels of everyone in the room. Interesting, it seems that quite a few of the younger genin here are more powerful than some of the veteran genin. Not quite sure if that is something to be proud of or worried about. Filing that little piece of information away for later use, Naruto continued searching for a strong chakra signature that felt out of place amongst the sea of genin. Found you. Looking up from his searching, he glanced at a male genin 2 rows ahead of him. Good job of hiding your sources, Ibiki, though you can't get by me that easily. Now for the tricky part. Forming a half-ram seal under the desk, Naruto placed his right hand over his test, coating it with his chakra. This one's for you, Mom. Pushing out with his chakra, the blonde created a small chain of chakra from his palm to the paper. Slowly moving the paper off of the desk and along the floor, Naruto maneuvered the paper so that it was near the disguised Chunin's paper, but still out of sight of everyone else. Using the chakra-coated paper as a medium, the blonde genin extended another small chain of chakra from his paper that connected to the Chunin's paper. Waiting until the man looked away from his paper, Naruto instantly swapped the two papers, leaving the Chunin a completely blank test and bringing the completed one back to him. My control is improving, it's almost ready to be battle-tested. The blonde's musing stopped as he watched a team of Kusa genin get kicked out. Guess all I have to do now is wait. The time passed relatively quickly for the blonde, having lost track of time as he silently meditated. Unbeknownst to Naruto, his fellow rookies had taken notice of his strange behavior and were wondering what had caused the shift in his personality, particularly his fellow blonde, Ino. What's up with Naruto? I thought he would have been a nervous wreck the second he found out we would be taking a written test, yet he's as calm as can be. What happened to him? The Naruto I know couldn't sit still for 5 minutes, let alone almost an entire hour. Well, whatever it is, I plan on getting to the bottom of it. Her mind made up, the Yamanaka heiress prepared to use her mind-body switch jutsu before Ibiki's gruff voice stopped her midway through the process. Alright you brats, pay attention, said Ibiki. 45 minutes have passed, so it is time to announce the 10th question. But before we do, I must explain a few extra rules that are unique to the 10th question. What? Asked a genin from Suna. What do you mean unique rules? I mean that these rules are the ones of desperation, he said with a dark chuckle. Now, the first rule, you must choose whether or not you wish to take the 10th question. Choose, shouted Tamari from the edge of the room. So what happens if we choose not to take the question? What happens then? Ibiki began to chuckle in the back of his throat, a sound that made the genin think they were in the presence of a demon. What happens then, should you choose not to take the 10th question? Your score will be reduced to 0 and you and your team will fail. What? What kind of bullshit is this? If that's the case, then of course we'll take the question. You didn't let me finish. Should you choose to take the question and you get it wrong, you will be barred from taking Thichu Union exams ever again. An unholy silence enveloped the room for a brief moment as everyone processed what the burly Jounin had said. That silence was broken by an enraged Kiba standing up and pointing at the scarred Jounin. What kind of rule is that? There are plenty of guys here who have taken the exams in the past before. Once again Ibiki began to chuckle in the back of his throat, but this time it escalated into a full-blown laugh that had some of the weaker genin ready to run. Then I guess you all are just unlucky. This year I'm making the rules. But just to prove I can be compassionate, I will give you a way out. Those of you who do not feel confident enough in yourselves can choose not to take the question, and can try again next year. The choice is yours. The eerie silence returned as the full scope of the situation made itself known to the competitors. Naruto's eyes remained closed as he continued his meditation, observing the fluctuations in everyone's chakra. Ibiki truly is the best when it comes to psychological warfare. He has almost everyone so rattled that it won't be long before. The censor's thoughts trailed off as the person next to him abruptly stood up. I can't do it. I give up. Alright then, number 50, fail. Number 130 and 111, you fail as well. Almost as if a wall had crumbled, multiple others began dropping out left and right. Throughout it all, Naruto remained silent, observing all the remaining chakra signatures, waiting for someone else to quit as well. His eyes snapped open when he felt the chakra on his right fluctuate. Poor Hinata, she was always a fragile girl, so this kind of mind attack is even harder on her. She's trying to remain brave for her teammates, but the pressure is starting to affect her. Looks like she needs a little boost to make it through this. Calling on the traces of his old personality still in his system, Naruto drew a kunai from his pouch and launched it at the Jounin, slicing the collar of his jacket. The remaining genin and sentinels looked on in shock as the rookie genin stood off against the seasoned Jounin. Something you wish to say? Asked Ibiki, covering his surprise at the sudden action. Yeah, don't underestimate me. I am a shinobi, and a shinobi never backs down from a challenge. You can try and scare me off all you want, but as long as I still draw breath, I will never give up. This one is different than the others, are you sure? This decision will affect the rest of your life. Naruto merely smirked and crossed his arms. Those who stray from the path of justice have no courage, but under the wind of a strong leader, cowardice cannot survive. Those were the words of the Yondaime Hokage. My dream is to become the Hokage. If I don't have faith in myself to pass this test, then how can I ask the people to have faith in me to protect and lead them? I will stand by my word, for that is my ninja way. Ibiki watched as the fear and worry left the faces of those still present, replaced by a strong conviction to succeed. This kid is interesting. He seems to have replaced everyone's worries with a strong determination. 78 left, more than I expected. But drawing this out would be pointless. After that little speech, all of them seemed to have grown a backbone. Looking around at the sentinels, he received a nod from each of them. Nodding himself, he looked back over the assembled genin before his eyes fell on the figure of Naruto once more. His eyes widened slightly as he gazed at the two specters overlapping the boy's frame. This boy, he has the same power as those two once did. I look forward to seeing where his future leads. Very well, if all of you are so set on accepting the question, then there is only one thing left to say. To the surprise of the genin present, the scowl that had adorned the man's face ever since his arrival vanished and was replaced by a proud smirk. Congratulations on passing the first stage of the Chunin selection exams. Wait a second, what about the 10th question? Asked Sakura, voicing the question everyone wanted an answer to. There never was a 10th question. Or perhaps you could consider your decision to stay the correct answer to the question. Hold on. So what about the other 9 questions? Were they pointless? Shouted Tamari. You're wrong, the first 9 questions did indeed have a purpose. One that they served quite well. Ibiki paused as he reached up and slowly untied his bandana. They were designed to test your abilities to gather information in an unknown and hostile environment. But just to give you a fighting chance, we had a few Chunin sit in with you to provide a source to cheat off of. But those who cheated poorly failed because in the shinobi world, there are times when information is more important than life. Removing his bandana, everyone was treated to the sight of multiple scars and puncture wounds scattered across the surface of Ibiki's skull, and during missions and on the battlefield, people risked their very lives to acquire it. Readying his bandana back to his head, Ibiki looked out over the genin one last time. The first stage of the exams is over. I wish you all luck in the coming stages. No sooner had the words left his mouth than did a black ball crash through the window. Not this again, thought Ibiki as the ball unfurled to reveal a banner with a woman standing in front of it. Alright you brats, listen up. This is no time to be celebrating. I am the proctor for the second exam, Anko Medarashi. Now follow me to the site of the second exam. Let's go. Silence, answered the strange kunoichi, who had the decency to blush at the awkward atmosphere she had caused. You're early, Anko, again, said the scarred Jonin as he stepped out from behind the banner. Anko's blush deepened slightly at her partner's words, but that was soon replaced by a look of confusion as she counted the number of remaining genin. What the hell, Ibiki? You let 26 teams pass the exam. I knew this year's first exam was going to be easier, but still, said the exasperated woman as she half-heartedly glared at her partner. Or perhaps we just have a good crop of outstanding genin this year. I'd be worried if I were you, Anko. Your record may be broken this year. Yeah right, like that'll happen, said Anko with a dismissive wave of her hand. Anyway, I hope you brats are ready, because the second stage of the Chunin exams begins in exactly half an hour. You have until then to make it to training ground 44. If you don't make it on time, you automatically fail. Get moving, she shouted before disappearing in a swirl of leaves, leaving behind the genin to run over each other as they tried to get out the door and find the training ground. Team 7, however, was frozen in place. They had been ever since Anko's arrival. Each of them had a single thought running through their heads: of all the people that could have been put in charge of the exam, why the hell did it have to be her? The memory of the first time the 3 genin had been introduced to Anko was still fresh in their minds, as were the nightmares they had about her helping them train for the exams. This is so not going to end well, they all thought before they resigned themselves to their fate and left the room, praying to Kami that they lived through whatever Anko had planned for the second exam. Forest of Death. 30 minutes later. Team 7 stood at the front of the remaining Chunin hopefuls as they awaited Anko to begin explaining the second stage. The thought that the Hokage had appointed Anko of all people to proctor the exam didn't sit well with them. Kakashi had introduced them to the snake user during their week of training, and to put it frankly, it was hell on earth. Normally someone who was supposed to proctor an exam wasn't supposed to help train any genin for fear of them giving up information or showing favoritism, but Anko, in her own words, said she really didn't give a fucking shit what a group of people who couldn't shit right without help said. So she assisted in their training for a few days. She didn't really teach them any techniques or skills per se. She mainly worked with Sakura, helping, or forcing, the girl to get over her fangirl crush on Sasuke and focus more on her ninja training. When Naruto and Sasuke had found out that Anko had succeeded, they had both been immensely relieved. Naruto because now they could truly become a team, and Sasuke because he had one less fangirl to deal with, though it didn't make up for the hundreds still out there. Anko checked the sun and saw that her 30-minute time frame had come and gone. Right then, first let me be the first to welcome you brats to Training Ground 44, or as I like to call it, the Forest of Death. Smirking at the frightened expressions of some of the genin, the special Jonin opened her jacket slightly, much to the enjoyment of the males, and pulled out a stack of papers. Now, unlike my colleague's test, this one will involve killing. So before I tell you what the exam is, you need to sign these waiver forms. It simply means that I can't be held responsible in the event of your death, nothing too important. The members of Team 7 all gave a collective sweat drop at the women's attitude towards killing and death. I kind of hope this is mostly an act for the exams, like Ibiki, cause if not. Naruto didn't even want to finish that thought. Shortly after, every genin had a form and Anko again opened her jacket a little more, once again to the pleasure of the males. This time she pulled out 2 scrolls, one black, and the other white. Each scroll had a kanji on the outside, one for heaven, the other for earth. Now I'm not one for boring long-winded instructions and details, so I'll make this simple. Each team will receive either a heaven scroll or an earth scroll. Once all the scrolls are passed out, you will report to an assigned gate, where you will enter the forest once I give the signal. Once inside, you all will compete in an all-out scroll battle. Your objective is to reach the tower in the center of the forest within 5 days' time, with both scrolls in your possession. Now the only real rule is that you can't look at the scrolls, other than that anything goes, killing, maiming, torturing, all of that is fair game. The only stipulation against a team passing is that you must have a complete team in order to pass. So one of you dies, you automatically fail. Putting the 2 scrolls back into her jacket, the snake mistress gave a disturbingly cheery smile to the crowd of genin. So, any questions? What happens if we look at the scrolls? Asked a Konoha genin. Anko began chuckling slightly, unnerving many of the genin present. If you open the scrolls, well, let's just say it won't be pretty and leave it that, shall we? Now that that's cleared up, everyone fill out your forms, get your scroll and get to your gate. The exam begins on my command. One by one the teams moved behind the curtained-off booth and received their scrolls. Team 7 stood off to the side watching as each team went through and moved towards their gate. Looks like they're not going to let us know which teams get what scroll, or who's carrying it. Are you surprised? They are testing our abilities in a real-life situation. The less we know about our enemies, the better in their minds, said Naruto with his arms crossed as they watched Gaara and his siblings enter the booth. Yeah, it's just like Ibiki said, Sakura said as she stood up from where she was sitting, we're risking our lives for information. Everyone here is our enemy now, whether they are from Konoha or not. Yeah, said Sasuke with his hands in his pockets, judging by the setup of things, it's safe to assume the 3rd stage will be held in the center tower. It wouldn't make sense to have us go all the way out there only to turn and go somewhere else for the next stage. Sasuke's right, said Naruto, and if the exams follow through with tradition, the 3rd stage will be individual matches between the competitors. Which is why, as soon as we are within the forest and out of sight of everyone, we will drop our little act and reveal our true selves. Finally, said Sasuke with a smirk, this genjutsu act of ours was beginning to get a little uncomfortable. It'll be good to test our skills in the field instead of in a spar. Naruto and Sakura nodded in agreement with their dark-haired teammate, before all 3 of them moved toward the booth to receive their scroll. Handing over their forms, they received a heaven scroll, which Naruto placed in his hip pouch. Few minutes later found the team standing outside of Gate 12, eagerly awaiting the call to start. On the other side of the forest, Team 10 was waiting for the exam to begin as well, though in their own unique way. Choji was desperately counting how many bags of chips he had with him, and begging the proctor to postpone the exam so that he could go get more. Shikamaru was mumbling about troublesome things, but mentally he was determining which teams they should target and how they may stack up against them. Ino's eyes had a far-off look to them as her thoughts drifted back to her fellow blonde. Ever since she had inadvertently ended up on his back, she couldn't get what she had felt out of her head. All of the guys from the academy had been in relatively good shape, with a few exceptions, but Naruto wasn't relatively good. If what she had felt was real, he was fucking ripped. But that wasn't what had gotten to her. No, what she couldn't get out of her head was how warm he was, and how right it felt to have her arms wrapped around him. What the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I get Naruto out of my head? It's not like I like the guy. I love Sasuke, But every time she tried to convince herself of that, what Sakura said before the first exam crept into her thoughts. Was forehead right? Have I allowed my skills to suffer because of a crush? The blonde Kunoichi was brought out of her thoughts by Anko's voice coming over the speaker. Alright you brats, the second stage of the Chunin exams begins now. The gates were flung open as the team swept into the forest, looking for anyone who might have the scroll they needed. Ino and her team jumped from branch to branch as they moved deeper into the forest. So what's the plan, Shikamaru? Asked Choji. He may have been upset about how many chips he had with him, but he knew when it was time to get serious. Let's head for the tower, said the laid-back genius. We can set up an ambush for when the other teams are weak from the forest and take them out. It's troublesome, but it's our best bet at getting the scroll we need. Actually, Shika, began Ino, I think we should go find Team 7. Huh, why's that, Ino? Asked Shikamaru, though he had a suspicion it had to do with why she was flustered before the first exam. I don't know, I just have this feeling that something isn't right about them, especially Naruto. Didn't you notice that during the first exam, Naruto just sat still for the entire time? He didn't look even the slightest bit nervous, even though he was the dead last at the academy. Yeah, I did notice that. Something is up with him, Sasuke and Sakura, and I want to know what. Alright, we'll look for Team 7, if we're wrong then at the least we'll have a chance to snatch their scroll. Ino and Choji nodded in agreement with the genius and the three changed direction in search of the enigma that was Team 7. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura were jumping through the dense foliage of the forest, moving faster than the average genin team should be able to. It was an hour after the exam had begun and so far the only enemies they had come across was a lone nin who tried to capture Naruto and infiltrate the team. That had failed spectacularly thanks to Naruto sensing the ninja before he even had a chance to prepare. Guys, there's a clearing up ahead, we'll stop and plan our next move there, said Naruto as he jumped down into the clearing, his teammates close behind. This should be far enough. Sakura, go ahead and drop the genjutsu, the nearest person is over 100 yards away. Nodding in acknowledgement, Sakura formed the ram seal and disrupted her chakra flow, Kai. The air around the team shimmered slightly as the cloaking genjutsu faded, revealing Team 7 for whom they really were. Naruto was wearing the same outfit he had when he removed his mask of an idiot, but Sasuke and Sakura's clothes of choice had changed during their week of training. Sasuke had replaced the traditional Uchiha clan clothing for a black, one-piece version of the clothing, with the Uchiha crest emblazoned across the back. His left hand was wrapped in bandages with numerous dark blue arm belts adorning it. He also had similar belts wrapped around both of his legs. Sakura now wore a modified version of her usual cheapao dress. She had on a red top with a white circle design on the back, along with black, skin-tight shorts. She had a gray skirt over the shorts with shin-high boots with a slight heel replacing the standard blue shinobi sandals. A pair of elbow-length black gloves with the symbol of the medical corps on them covered her hands. She had followed in Naruto's footsteps and replaced her usual blue headband cloth with a red one that complemented her hair. Before the three genin had a chance to plan, Naruto's eyes widened as he sensed a massive chakra signature heading for them, fast. We're about to have company. But there is no way this guy is a genin, he has as much chakra as the Hokage. Sasuke and Sakura stiffened at this. If someone with that kind of power was looking for them, then they were in trouble. What the hell is someone like that doing these exams? Shouldn't someone have noticed them before now? Asked Sasuke as he activated his Sharingan and saw the dark, ominous chakra the person moving towards them had. Whoever they are, their chakra isn't normal, it feels almost evil, finished Naruto. There is only person I know of that could have that kind of chakra, and if he's in the village. We have to warn the Hokage somehow. We need to try and buy ourselves some time. Let's make some clones and see if we can learn anything about this guy. Forming his signature crosshand seal, a single shadow clone appeared next to him. Sasuke and Sakura were quick to follow his lead, though they each made a Raiton shadow clone and a Doton shadow clone respectively. The clones transformed so that they looked like the three had before, dispelling the genjutsu, while the originals hid in the trees at a safe distance to observe their new enemy. Few seconds passed before a powerful blast of wind passed through the clearing. The two elemental clones managed to hold their ground from the attack, but Naruto's clone was swept away by the wind, dispelling once it collided with a tree. Damn, not good. That was a high-powered futon technique. If he can use jutsu of that caliber, we'll have a serious fight on our hands, Sasuke said as he observed the damage caused with his Sharingan. He's here, whispered Naruto as a figure slowly began to rise out of the ground. It was an older-looking Chunin wearing a straw hat, but that was the only normal thing about him. He was emitting large amounts of killing intent that had the two clones shaking in fear. We can't take this guy head-on, our only hope is the element of surprise. Sakura, disrupt his footing and Sasuke and I will attack while he's off balance. Got it, said Sakura as she jumped down to the ground as silently as possible while forming hand seals. Doton, tearing earth-turning palm, when her hands touched the ground, the earth around the Kusa shinobi began to break and spiral in on itself. Not expecting such a response from a team of genin, the disguised Orochimaru was forced to jump towards one of the trees to avoid being crushed. Unfortunately for him, the branch he was about to land on exploded, launching him through the air towards a waiting Sasuke. What the? Thought the man as he looked over his shoulder at the last Uchiha. It seems that they are more skilled than I gave them credit for. Sasuke took out 2 handfuls of shuriken and threw them in a wide arc at the airborne shinobi. The lethal stars crossed paths in front of the long-haired shinobi and only then did he realize that they were being guided by wires. Pulling on the wires, Sasuke manipulated them so that they completely ensnared his enemy, preventing him from escaping. Clenching the wires in his teeth, the dark-haired genin sped through a series of hand seals, ending in the tiger seal. Katan, dragon fire jutsu, fire erupted from Sasuke's mouth and traveled along the wire towards the bound shinobi. Impressive Sasuke-kun, but still rather predictable. The trapped man's thoughts halted as he saw Naruto appear next to Sasuke, already finishing his own set of seals. Futon stream, Naruto exhaled a concentrated blast of wind from his mouth that easily caught up to the flames and more than tripled their speed and intensity. The two boys waited in anticipation as the flames consumed their target. They knew that it wouldn't be that easy to defeat someone with so much power, and so were already preparing for the counter they knew was coming. Massive spike of chakra emanated from the flames, dispersing them and revealing the charred body of the Kusa ninja. The man began chuckling as his body seemed to just slither out of the wire binding him. In a blur of speed that even Sasuke's Sharingan couldn't follow, the man appeared across from the two boys on the branch. Whirling around to face their opponent, Naruto and Sasuke saw that part of the man's face seemed to have simply melted off, revealing pale white skin with a yellow snake-like eye. Kukoku, I must admit, you caught me by surprise with your level of skill, but now I believe it is time for me to see what you are really capable of. Come Sasuke-kun, Naruto-kun, entertain me, he said, his voice becoming an excited cackle at the end. The two boys shivered at the man's insane tone but knew they didn't have much of a choice. They each fell into their respective taijutsu stances and charged the man, Sasuke going for a low sweep while Naruto spun to deliver a roundhouse kick to the man's head. All the while, the partially revealed Orochimaru merely smirked, not bothering with defending himself. However, just before the two kicks were about to connect, his hands blurred and he let loose a strong wind that blew the two genin off of the branch they were standing on. Smirking to himself, Orochimaru walked towards where the two had fallen, only to receive a chakra-enhanced punch to the face from Sakura. This strength, it's almost comparable to Tsunade's when she first began developing her super strength, thought the rogue Sannin as he got up from where he had landed, only to see that the genin had regrouped. That girl, she has more potential than Tsunade did at her age, but even more worrisome is their teamwork. If this is what they are capable of now, then given the proper training, these three could easily surpass we of the Sannin. Kukoku, I knew Sasuke-kun would entertain me, but I never imagined all three of them would provide me with such a challenge. Well, I must say that was quite unexpected, but now it is time for me to take what I came for. The three genin's eyes widened as the man blurred towards them, kicking Sakura away before she had a chance to react. Sasuke attempted to strike the man with a kick to the head, but he blocked it with ease. Grabbing a hold of the leg, Orochimaru threw the last Uchiha into another tree and watched as he collapsed on one of the branches. Naruto jumped away from the man and weaved hand seals as fast as he could. Orochimaru wasn't about to let him have the chance to attack and extended his tongue to wrap around the boy's ankle. Naruto cursed as he was swung into a thick branch, only to be pulled back towards the man who had a kunai poised to kill him. Orochimaru smirked as he plunged the kunai into Naruto's heart to the screams of his teammates. I had hoped he might be able to escape, he was proving to be quite interesting. Oh well, now to do what I came here for. Letting the lifeless body fall to the ground below, the pale man turned to where he had left Sasuke. The boy was attempting to stand so that he could avenge his fallen comrade, but Orochimaru had other plans. Forming the seal for his Juinjutsu, his neck elongated to impossible lengths and moved to bite Sasuke at the base of his neck. Suetun, water-splitting wave, a pressurized stream of water cut through one of the trees and moved to sever the elongated neck of the Sannin. Living up to his reputation, Orochimaru managed to replace himself with a log at the last second. The log didn't stand a chance as the water sliced clean through it. Naruto appeared in front of Sasuke, to the relief of his teammates and mild shock of Orochimaru. Looking over where he thought he had dropped Naruto's body, Orochimaru found nothing but a puddle of water. So you managed to replace yourself with a water clone, despite being thrown around like a rag doll and with no available water source nearby. I must admit, Naruto-kun, I am impressed. Naruto frowned as he stared at the Sannin. Thanks, it's not every day one receives a compliment from one of the Sannin, Orochimaru. Sasuke and Sakura, who had moved back to her teammates, looked at Naruto in shock before turning their eyes to the chuckling person across from them. You are well informed, Naruto-kun, said the man as he reached up and pulled off the rest of his face, revealing the pale visage of the snake Sannin. I am indeed Orochimaru, one of the legendary three ninja. Why are you here? What do you have to gain by attacking us? Kukuku, what I want is quite simple, said the rogue ninja. Team 7's eyes all widened when the Orochimaru in front of them turned into a pile of mud. Naruto spun around when he heard Sasuke scream in pain, just in time to see Orochimaru's neck retract after biting into Sasuke's neck. Sasuke collapsed in pain as Sakura tried what she could to heal the wound on his neck and ease the pain. There, now Sasuke will seek me out for power. But before that, I wish you well in these exams. Watching how you three fare will be most entertaining for me. Pulling out the earth scroll that Team 7 needed to pass the exam, Orochimaru threw it to Naruto, who caught it. Consider that a token of my appreciation. Oh, and when he awakens, tell Sasuke-kun that I will be waiting for him. Naruto cursed as the man disappeared into the branch the same way he had arrived. Looking down at his fallen teammate, Naruto sighed and pocketed the scroll before picking Sasuke up and putting him over his shoulder. Come on, Sakura, we're too vulnerable out here in the open. Let's find a place to set up camp and take a closer look at what that bastard did to Sasuke. Sakura nodded and the two conscious Chunin jumped away to find shelter. Night had fallen over Training Ground 44 as the competitors of the Chunin exams continued to wage battle against one another. Naruto was sitting against a thick tree root as Sakura was doing a field check on Sasuke. He had the earth scroll Orochimaru had given them clutched in his right hand as he tried to figure out the rogue ninja's motives. What the hell could he be planning? If the reason he attacked us was so that he could place that mark on Sasuke, then why not just kill Sakura and I to make it easier for him? Not to mention, he glanced at the scroll in his hand, why would he seemingly help us to pass this exam? Ugh, nothing makes sense. He was brought out of his confusing thoughts by Sakura shaking his shoulder. Hey Sakura, how's Sasuke doing? Sakura frowned as she sat next to him. Over the week they had trained together, she had learned a lot more about her blonde teammate, one of which he was always aware of his surroundings, not letting his guard down that often. For him to be so lost in thought that he didn't sense her next to him meant that something was really wrong. He's fine, he is still in a little pain, but it's passing quickly. He's running a slight fever, but it's nothing life-threatening. Her frown deepened when she saw him nod almost absent-mindedly. Something is really wrong. Naruto, what's wrong? We're teammates, you know you can tell me anything, she said, trying to coax him into talking and getting whatever was bugging him off his mind. Naruto sighed, his gaze once more turning to the scroll in his hand. It's just, I don't understand what his motive for attacking us could have been. It's obvious he wanted to place that mark on Sasuke, but then why didn't he simply kill the two of us and do it right from the start? It's not like he didn't have the power or skill to do so. Sakura placed her hand over the one he held the scroll with, encouraging him to continue. She could tell there was something more than what he was letting on. She knew that Orochimaru was part of the reason he was like this, as she had been having similar thoughts, but there was something else that was bothering him. Naruto, she began, leaning forward so she could look at him directly. I know that you're bothered by what happened, I am too, but I can tell there's more to it than that. So please, tell me what's really bothering you. Looking into her emerald eyes, Naruto couldn't help the small smirk that spread across his lips. No matter how he tried, Sakura always seemed to be able to read them like a book when she wanted to. Looking away from her, Naruto absently scanned the treetops around them for any signs of enemies. It's just, I feel like I should be better than this. I let you and Sasuke down because of my inability to protect you guys when it mattered. I feel like there is something wrong with me, that I'm not as good as I should be. When I was being trained by my godfather, I was always able to respond and adapt to whatever situation he threw at me, but now, I feel like there is something preventing me from using my skills to their truest extent, but I just can't seem to figure out what it is. Sakura felt her heart clench at seeing her teammate so torn up over this. She had seen him fight against Kakashi and Sasuke multiple times in spars, and he always held his own, and more often than not won against their teammate. Though they were completely outmatched, she didn't see anything wrong with him during their fight with Orochimaru. In fact, he had fared better than either her or Sasuke for that matter, but despite that, he still felt like he hadn't done enough. Naruto, she whispered as she watched him stare off into nowhere, I don't understand why you're acting like this. You handled yourself better than all of us against Orochimaru, but you are my teammate and I'll do my best to try and help you through it however I can. Not really thinking about it, Sakura leaned up and gave him a light kiss on his whiskered cheek. Finally, it seemed that the adrenaline she had been running on had run its course, as Sakura closed her eyes and laid her head on Naruto's shoulder. Sasuke should be fine for now, wake me up if anything changes, she mumbled before finally succumbing to the blissful grip of sleep. Naruto looked at the sleeping form of Sakura and felt a smile form on his face. Her words repeated themselves over and over in his mind as he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Teammates, he thought wistfully, that's what you always tried to teach me, Jiraiya-sensei, but I never truly took your teachings to heart. But now, he looked back down at the young girl sleeping against him and over to the prone form of Sasuke, I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. If I truly wish to be strong, I must be willing to put my life on the line in order to protect those that are precious to me. Looks like I finally caught up to you, Haku. I understand what you meant now, and I swear that I will do everything in my power to live up to your legacy. I will protect my precious people, no matter the cost. His mind finally clear, Naruto drifted off into a light sleep, his smile never leaving. In the shadows of a large tree overlooking the clearing, Team 7 was resting in. 3 people were watching them, waiting for their time to strike. So we finally found him, said the bandaged leader of the group. He was hunched over slightly with a fur pelt covering his back. His sleeves were extremely long, covering his hands and concealing the device he wore. As Orochimaru-sama commanded, we attack at daybreak. Our target is Sasuke Uchiha. But if the other 2 get in our way, we can kill them, right? Asked his teammate. He wore a beige shirt that had the kanji for death printed on the front 3 times. He also had a snake pattern scarf around his neck, a trait he shared with both of his teammates. Of course, replied the bandaged genin as they retreated into the shadows to await the rising of the sun. With Team Guy. The sun will be rising soon, said Niji Hyuga as he sat with his team at the base of a large tree. Most of the teams will be resting now, so we'll attack as planned. We'll split up and scout the area. Even if we don't find another team, we meet back here in exactly 30 minutes, understand? He asked, throwing a kunai into the ground in between the 3 genin. Got it, said Tenten with a smile. Roger, said Lee with an over-the-top salute. All right then, go. The 3 genin leapt away into the foliage around them, searching for potential targets. Sunrise, second day of exam. The first rays of sunlight flittered into the grove. Team 7 was resting in, hitting the face of Sakura and waking her up. Groaning slightly as she sat up, the pinkette couldn't help the small smile when she saw both of her teammates resting peacefully. Naruto was leaning against the root he had claimed ever since they arrived at the grove, while Sasuke seemed to have finally settled down during the night. Her smile disappeared, however, when she heard a rustling in the bushes across from the grove. Pulling a kunai to defend with, Sakura waited for the person to reveal themselves. She left out a breath when a squirrel came out of the bushes and scampered towards the grove. No, she threw her kunai just in front of the squirrel, scaring the small animal away. That was a close one. She's observant, said Zaku as he and his team stood on the tree overlooking the clearing. She managed to notice the paper bomb on the squirrel. No, that's not it, mumbled Dosu as he surveyed the clearing with his lone eye. What do you mean, Dosu? Asked Zaku. We'll probably find out when we get closer, the mummy man mused, so, let's go. The three leapt from their position in the tree and landed on the opposite side of the clearing, causing Sakura's head to snap towards them. Well, you seem to be somewhat awake. No matter, wake Sasuke Uchiha, we want to fight him. So they finally show themselves, thought Naruto, not showing any signs that he was awake. A lot of people seem to be after Sasuke. That can't be a coincidence. These guys are probably connected to Orochimaru in some way, but they are nowhere near as strong as I expected them to be. Sakura, how will you handle this situation? He thought as he focused his senses so that he could feel everything within the clearing. With Lee. Lee leapt across the branches at high speed, his eyes darting around for the slightest sign of any other teams. He stopped on a branch when he saw a small flurry of leaves falling to the ground. If I can catch all 20 of these leaves before they reach the ground, I will one day find love. But should I fail, I will forever remain single. A strange fire appeared in the green-clad genin's eyes as he launched himself towards the ground, his hands a blur as he grabbed the leaves out of the air. As he was reaching for the last leaf, he noticed a squirrel squirming on the ground trying to get the lit paper bomb off its back. Faster than many could see, Lee picked up the squirrel and crumpled the bomb in his fist, extinguishing it. Phew, made it in time, he sighed as he sat up and threw the useless bomb away. Who would do something so horrible as to put something like this on an innocent creature like you? As if it could understand him, the squirrel turned towards the direction it had come and began squeaking loudly. So they are that way. Show me the way, my little friend. They should pay for doing something so unyouthful. With Team 7 and Oto Team. Sakura was thinking along the same lines as Naruto and decided to try and get some answers from them. I know Orochimaru is behind this, so tell me, what is his reason for being in our village? The three Oto Genin's face registered shock at the question, but it was quickly replaced by ones of confusion. I wonder what Orochimaru-sama is thinking, mumbled Dosu aloud as his single eye narrowed in suspicion. It doesn't matter, but seeing as you know so much, we can't let you go alive. You two hang back, I'll kill this girl, and then I'll kill her two pathetic teammates. Wait, Zaku, said Dosu as he walked forward to where Sakura's kunai was sticking out of the ground. You aren't very good at this, are you? Recently overturned stones, different colors of dirt and grass where it doesn't normally grow. Booby traps are only effective if they go unnoticed. Too bad you won't be alive long enough to use that knowledge. Dosu and his teammates jumped high above the clearing, planning on coming at Sakura from above to finish her off. Sakura smirked as she cut a wire next to her and a giant log swung down towards the airborne genin. Another trap above? As if we would fall for such a basic ploy, said Dosu as he placed his uncovered right hand on the log while forming a half-ram seal with his left. The log was blasted in half by the sound waves emanating from his gauntlet, but it served its purpose for Sakura as two clones appeared above the three. What? Doton, Earth-style wall, the two clones' cheeks swelled before they expelled a stream of mud, forming a circle around the opposing genin. The mud rose and solidified into a wall of earth, trapping the Oto ninja inside it. The two clones landed on top of the wall and began going through hand seals again, but Dosu wasn't going to give them the chance to finish. Placing his right hand on the wall, he once more used the sound vibrations of his gauntlet to shatter the earth, while Kin and Zaku dispatched the clones with kunai. His attacks must utilize some kind of vibrations. That's the only way he could have destroyed that log in my wall. Sakura's thoughts were halted as the three once again launched themselves towards her, ready to end it. Before any of them had a chance to react, a green blur appeared and kicked the three foreign genin away with a powerful spin kick. Wait, isn't that? Who are you? asked Dosu as he stood up and looked at the strange newcomer. I am the beautiful green beast of Konoha, Rock Lee, he said as he took the opening stance for his Goken Taijutsu. This time it was Sakura who asked the question, why are you here? She was slightly relieved at the boy's arrival, but still, it seemed a little too perfect for her liking. I was following a little friend of mine when I saw your fight. Though we may be competitors in this exam, we are still both Konoha ninja. I will not allow one of my comrades to fight alone, especially not one as beautiful as you. Lee said with a small blush as he looked back at Sakura. Thanks for the compliment, but I believe we have more pressing matters to deal with, said Sakura as she drew another kunai and got into a stance in front of her teammates. Yash, then let us end this, said Lee as he turned back to the Oto Genin, a fierce determination in his eyes. He seems to be quite advanced in taijutsu, it will be interesting to see how he deals with my attack, thought Dosu as he uncovered his right arm and ran towards the two Konoha Genin. Sakura reacted instantly and threw her kunai, which Dosu jumped over. Rearing his arm back, the bandaged Otonin prepared his attack, but before he could, Lee punched his arm straight into the ground and pulled up a massive tree root with his bare hands. That's some impressive strength he has there, thought Naruto, still keeping up his facade of being asleep. I definitely look forward to testing my skills against his in the future. However, he and Sakura are still at a disadvantage, and seems these Oto guys use sound-based techniques. Not something that is easily defended against, I just might have to intervene if things get out of hand. Especially if those three don't try and help. Unknown to everyone but Naruto, Team 10 had arrived just as the Oto team began their attack, and to say they were surprised would be an understatement. Since when has Sakura of all people been so good, questioned Shikamaru as he and Shoji watched the fight with wide eyes. Ino didn't hear her teammate's question as she was currently lost in thought, memories of her past with Sakura surfacing, as well as what Sakura had said to her before the first exam. Is this what she meant by wanting to protect those she cares for? Sakura, have I truly fallen so far behind you? Guy-sensei, please forgive me, but I must use that technique, thought Lee as he unraveled the bandages around his arms. Sakura-san has not fully recovered from her sleep, I will have to handle the brunt of the fighting. I don't know what you're planning, but it won't work, said Dosu as he raised his gauntlet to strike once again. Lee crouched down as the Otonin moved to strike him, but before he had a chance, Lee vanished in an intense burst of speed. He vanished. Lee appeared beneath the bandaged genin and sent him flying with a powerful upward thrust kick. Dosu could do nothing as his limp body flew higher into the air, but sadly, the green-clad genin wasn't finished with him. Appearing underneath the genin, the bandages of Lee's arms wrapped around him, preventing Dosu from countering. Grabbing a hold of his now trapped opponent, the two began to spin at high speed as they fell to the ground head first. Take this. Front Lotus. Not good, Dosu can't defend himself like that, said Zaku as he flashed through hand seals. Burying both of his hands underground, the spiky-haired genin released a wave of pressurized air that softened the earth where the two would land. Lee jumped away from his victim just before he impacted with the ground, watching as Dosu crashed into the now softened dirt. His eyes, along with Sakura's and Team 10's, widened when Dosu shakily stood up from the attack. Looks like I made it in time, smirked Zaku as he pulled his hands out of the ground. What a terrifying technique, said Dosu as he shook his head, to cause this amount of damage to my body even though I landed on this soft dirt. But it seems that it also took its toll on you as well, so now it's my turn. Damn, my body hasn't fully recovered yet, thought Lee as he forced both of his arms up to block the incoming strike. It wasn't necessary, however, as a wall of earth rose up, absorbing the impact of the blow as well as the vibrations. What? Who did? Sorry for taking so long, Lee-san, but I'm finally back to full strength, said Sakura as she stood up from her crouched position. I can tell that technique has a drawback to its use, so now it's your turn to rest while I'll fight. Bold words for a weak little girl, said Zaku with a cruel smirk. It won't take us long to finish you off, but I think we'll torture you a little bit. Now, Kin. Sakura's eyes widened as Kin appeared behind her and grabbed onto her hair, holding her in place. My, your hair has so much more luster than mine. You may have a few impressive techniques, but you're still a pathetic excuse for a kunoichi. The Oto kunoichi tightened her grip on Sakura's hair, forcing her to her knees. Zaku, kill this bitch's teammates in front of her. Let her see just how pathetic she really is. Zaku chuckled as he walked towards the still sleeping Sasuke while Naruto prepared to make his move. Just as he was about to respond, Naruto felt a shift in Sakura's chakra and stayed his hand. It's time that Sakura proved she is a capable kunoichi. Zaku raised his hand towards Naruto and Sasuke, decapitating airwaves. A pressurized blast of wind was expelled from the holes in his palm, moving to finish off the two Konoha genin. An explosion rocked the clearing as the attack made contact, causing Zaku to smirk while Team 10 couldn't believe what they had just seen. However, the sight that greeted everyone when the dust settled was not what they were expecting. Naruto and Sasuke were completely unharmed with a pile of destroyed earth lying in front of them. What? Kin, I thought you had her. As the two shinobi from Otogakure looked towards their teammate, they saw that she was clutching her stomach with a tuft of pink hair in her right hand. She cut her hair, thought Zaku in realization before he was forced to jump away from falling axe kick that left a small crater on the ground. Sakura, her hair barely reaching her shoulders, pulled out a kunai with a paper bomb attached to it and threw it at the two genin. Stupid girl, why can't you just learn to stay down, shouted Zaku as he blasted the kunai away, just before the bomb exploded. Sakura jumped back so she was standing in front of the still recovering Lee and her resting teammates. Her eyes widened though as multiple sunban pierced her leg and shoulder joints, forcing her to fall to the ground in pain. That was for that punch, you worthless swine, said Kin, her breathing still labored as she jumped over to her teammates. Zaku, finish all of them off in one fell swoop. It's time we stopped playing around. Fine by me, he said as he raised his arms to strike again, but was forced to stop as a hail of kunai came out of the bushes. What now? Team 10 appeared in front of the down Team 7 and Lee, frowns adorning their faces. Give me a break, these guys keep popping up like cockroaches. Ino, said Sakura as she looked up from trying to heal her injuries. Hey Sakura, you didn't think I would let you have all the fun, did you? Said the blonde kunoichi as she looked down at her one-time friend. I understand what you meant now, Sakura, and now I'm going to protect someone I care about. Protect them? How do you plan to protect those weaklings when you can't even protect yourselves? Decapitating airwaves, once again a blast of pressurized air headed towards the assembled Konoha ninja. Choji, now. Multi-size jutsu. Choji's body expanded till he resembled a large ball with limbs. Retracting his limbs into his body, the Akimichi air began to roll towards the oncoming attack at speeds that betrayed his size. Human bullet tank, the two attacks met head-on, but due to his rotation, Choji was able to push through it. Air pressure is useless so long as he has that momentum. Zaku move, shouted Dosu as he moved to attack with his melody arm again. His body froze however as Shikamaru made his move. Shadow imitation jutsu, complete, said the Nara air, you're not going anywhere, pal. Growling, Kin killed him, said Zaku as he continued to dodge the rolling form of Choji. Kin nodded and prepared multiple Sanban before she felt herself losing control of her body. Kin, what the hell is wrong with you? Kin's not in right now, and unless you surrender your scroll and leave, she dies, said Ino from inside Kin, pulling out a kunai and putting it to her throat for emphasis. Neither of the two Oto shinobi said anything, but Zaku smirked as he jumped away from Choji and aimed at Kin's body. He isn't. Decapitating airwaves, all of the Konoha shinobi could only look on in horrid realization as the Ino-possessed Kin was blasted into a tree. Ino, get out of there, shouted Shikamaru when he noticed the blood dripping from the mouth of Ino's real body. Seeing that their usual strategy wasn't going to work, Ino exited Kin's body and returned to her own. What kind of people would willingly sacrifice their own teammate? You don't get it, do you, said Dosu, our objective in this forest is not to pass some pathetic test, it's to kill Sasuke Uchiha. As he finished, Shikamaru's shadow retracted and he found himself able to move again. So it seems 5 minutes is the limit to your technique. Now then, to end this little game of ours. Zaku, do it, he said as he flicked his gauntlet and focused the sound wave to attack the 5 down Konoha ninja. No mistakes this time. Extreme decapitating airwave, a massive blast of pressurized air, twice as powerful as the usual ones, merged and amplified the sound waves as they neared their targets. "I've seen enough," thought Naruto as he moved to intercept the combined technique. A massive cloud of dust and debris was kicked up from the attack, obscuring the place where the attack hit. "Heather takes care of that," said Zaku as he moved towards the unconscious form of Kin. "Let's get out of here and report back to Orochimaru-sama. Our mission is complete." Dosa nodded as the two moved to leave the clearing before a new voice rang out. "Leaving so soon? The fun is just beginning." The two Oto shinobi whirled around as the last of the dust settled down, revealing the results of their attack. Naruto stood in front of his fellow Konoha genin, all of whom were astonished that the blonde had managed to stop the powerful attack. Sakura smiled as she watched Naruto face off against the two remaining enemies. She didn't know what caused it, but she could tell that something had changed within her teammate and it had only made him that much stronger. Ino could only stare at the blonde shinobi as he stood directly in front of her. The power he was exuding was almost too much for her budding abilities as a sensor, but instead of overwhelming her, his power almost seemed to envelop her, protecting her. Her body involuntarily shivered at the feeling his power gave off, and she felt her own chakra being drawn to his, almost as if the two were connected. What is this feeling? Is this Naruto? But when did he get so powerful? Impossible, muttered Dosu as he looked at the blonde with fear in his eyes. To be able to stop an attack of that magnitude, we must retreat. We are no match for him. Zaku, we're leaving, now. I don't think so, said Naruto before he blurred forward and kicked Zaku in the stomach, causing him to double over. You threatened my teammates and my comrades, that is something I will never forgive. Grabbing the spiky-haired boy by the scarf, the blonde shinobi threw him into the air before flashing through hand seals. Suiton, water bullet jutsu, needing chakra in his stomach, Naruto expelled a powerful torrent of water from his mouth towards the airborne Zaku. Still dazed from the kick, Zaku could do nothing to defend himself and received the full force of the attack. The torrent forced him even higher into the air and he collided painfully against the trunk of a tree. Naruto ended his technique and turned to see Dosu attempting to attack from his blind spot. Grabbing the edge of the top scroll on his back, Naruto jumped away from Oto Genin and unrolled it slightly, causing a cloud of smoke to appear. Dosa tried to see through the smoke, but it proved to be futile. His eyes flickered to Zaku, who had just landed on his left arm with a loud snap. His small moment of inattention would cost him, however, as Naruto appeared in front of him, a katana in hand. Dosu's eyes widened as he tried to get away, but Naruto was faster. His blade met its mark and sliced Dosu's right arm off at the elbow, removing his melody arm. Dosu gasped in pain as he jumped over to Zaku's twitching form. This is different, he is much more powerful than the others. Wait, he said when he saw Naruto moving to finish him. He pulled out his team's earth scroll and placed it on the ground, slowly backing away from the blonde. Take it and let us leave. We are in no shape to continue fighting you. Naruto glared at the mummified man, but nodded in acceptance. Dosa sighed as he used his stump of an arm to hold up Zaku while throwing Kin over his shoulder with the other. Not wanting to give the blonde genin a chance to change his mind, Dosu immediately jumped away. Sighing, Naruto resealed his katana back into his scroll before picking up the scroll Dosu had left. Turning to head back towards his fellow Konoha shinobi, he noticed Sakura had finally managed to treat her own wounds and had started helping Lee with his. Shikamaru and Choji were sitting on the ground resting, though they didn't really need it. Ino, however, hadn't moved at all. She was still standing in the place she had been since Naruto appeared and was staring at her fellow blonde with mixture of emotions. Wonder, gratitude, shock and a small trace of lust all flittered across Ino's eyes, causing Naruto to smile slightly at the effect he had on her. Truth was, he wasn't as oblivious to the fairer sex as he seemed to be. He had Jiraiya to thank for that. The man had done everything he could to get Naruto to follow the ways of the pervert, but he always refused. That didn't mean he didn't learn a great deal about women during his time with his godfather. He had learned to appreciate a female's body and looks, but he was just much more subtle about it than the self-proclaimed super pervert. He had noticed early on that Sakura, Hinata and Ino all had the makings of future ravishing beauties, but there was something about his fellow blonde that intoxicated him. Pushing those thoughts aside, Naruto walked over to the blonde kunoichi. "Hey Ino, you alright?" Ino almost collapsed into a pile of mush at the sound of Naruto's deepening voice. Composing herself as best she could, Ino nodded the affirmative to her fellow blonde. "Why yeah, but shouldn't I be the one asking you that question? You just took on those two all by yourself." Chuckling slightly, Naruto shook his head. "It's okay Ino, and I'm fine, see? Not a scratch on me." Ino absently nodded as her eyes traveled up and down Naruto's body. Now that he was close to her, she could clearly see the hard muscles all along his body. "Oh my god, he really is ripped," thought Ino with a little bit of drool coming out of the corner of her mouth. "Ino, what scroll do you guys need to pass this exam?" "Oh, we need an Earth scroll," she said, pulling out her team's Heaven scroll. Naruto smiled that heart-melting smile of his that Ino was slowly becoming addicted to and handed her the Earth scroll the Oto team had left. "Why are you giving us this scroll? Don't you need it?" "No, we already have both of our scrolls. Besides, consider it a thank you for helping Sakura even when you didn't have to." Shooting her one last smile, Naruto made his way over to the rest of the genin in the clearing. "How's everyone doing? Any major injuries?" He already knew that none of them had been seriously hurt because he had been watching the battle, but he didn't want to give away the fact that he was a sensor just yet. "Although if I did I could probably help Ino develop her sensory abilities." "No, we're good," said Shikamaru as he laid back on the ground and looked up at the treetops. "It may have been troublesome, but at least we held those guys off long enough for you to wake up from your nap." So he did notice, thought Naruto. "Well, you guys have my thanks, and you don't have to worry about getting another scroll from a different team. They left us an Earth scroll and I gave it to Ino. You guys are all set." "Gee, thanks Naruto," said Choji in between bites of chips. "Where the hell did he get that?" thought Naruto with a sweat drop. Whatever. Turning his attention to the green-clad genin, Sakura was still healing. Another smile appeared on Naruto's face. "Lee, right?" he asked, getting a nod from the boy. "Well Lee, you have my thanks for assisting Sakura. Now I believe your team is here for you." Looking up to one of the multiple branches above the clearing, Naruto locked eyes with Niji Hyuga. Everyone followed his gaze and was surprised at the appearance of the two genin. "How did he sense our presence from this distance?" thought Niji in mild surprise, though his face remained set in a frown. "Lee, it is time to go. We have business to attend to." Lee stood up from where Sakura had been treating him and flashed the pinkette a gracious smile. "Thank you for healing me, Sakura-san." Turning to Naruto, Lee struck what everyone would later learn was his signature nice guy pose. "Naruto, my youthful friend, it was an honor to meet you. I hope that one day we may be allowed to test our skills against one another, but for now this is goodbye. Until next we meet, my eternal rival." Naruto chuckled nervously at that, having heard stories from Kakashi about his own eternal rival. "Why yeah, eternal rivals, and I also look forward to the day we may face one another. It would be an honor to test myself against someone such as you." Lee gained a fire in his eyes as he shouted about the flames of youth before Tenten finally managed to drag him out of the clearing. Well, that was disturbing. "You can say that again," said a familiar voice from inside the grove. Everyone turned to see Sasuke walking towards them, looking back to normal, if a little tired. Sakura was next to him in a flash, running a quick diagnostic to see if he was truly ready to be moving yet. Once she gave the all clear, Naruto turned to the gathered Team 10. "You know, since both of our teams already have the scroll we need to pass, why don't we travel together? Most of the people here will think twice about attacking two teams at once." Sasuke and Sakura nodded in agreement with their blonde teammate. Having Team 10 along would greatly reduce their chance of getting attacked, and even if some of the competitors were stupid enough to try and attack 6 genin, it would be that much easier to defeat them. Shikamaru saw the logic in the idea as well, but he knew that if he volunteered them for something that Ino didn't want, it would end with him having a massive headache from her shouting. To his surprise, Ino almost jumped at the offer, whether because it was the safest way for all of them to reach the tower, or just because she wanted to be around Sasuke more, he didn't know. The Nara genius had no idea how accurate his thoughts about Ino were, but he was wrong about who she wanted to be around. Ino was quickly forgetting about her crush on Sasuke, and replacing it with a growing interest in her fellow blonde. She still couldn't understand what it was about the power he wielded, but something about it drove her wild when he had unleashed it against the Oto Genin, and she could honestly say she wanted to experience that again. Naruto's assumption proved correct, as the two teams experienced no trouble from any of the other teams as they made their way to the tower. Once they had arrived, the two teams went to their respective doors and entered the tower. After deciphering the riddle and opening their two scrolls, Team 7 was greeted by none other than Irika, who explained the riddle's meaning to them before showing them to the room they would be staying in until the end of the exam. That was where they were now, each sitting on their own bed. Naruto looked over to Sasuke and saw him rubbing the spot where his new curse mark was. "Sasuke, what happened after Orochimaru bit you?" Sasuke cringed at the memory of what transpired in his mind, but pushed through it. "I was confronted by another version of me, though this one was younger. It was talking about how it was my fault that my brother killed our clan, that if I had been stronger and had more power, I could have prevented it." A single tear fell as he thought about his deceased family, and he did nothing to hide it. He trusted Naruto and Sakura enough to let them see him like this. "It tried to convince me to accept the power it was offering and to defeat the ones who were attacking us on my own, to show everyone my power. But I managed to fight it off. I pushed it back when I felt your guys' chakra and was reminded that if I truly wanted to understand what it means to have real power, I need to believe in my teammates and comrades." Naruto and Sakura smiled at their friend. It seemed that all of them had learned a valuable lesson while they were in the forest. Naruto's face then turned serious as something Jiraiya had told him once caused an ingenious, if completely insane idea to form in his mind. "Hey guys," he said, interrupting the small conversation Sasuke and Sakura were having, "I just thought of something you might be interested in, though I'll have to tell you a few facts for you to understand." The two nodded and gave their full attention to their teammate, both of them curious as to what he may be planning. "Alright, now first." Team 7 stood alongside the other genin that had passed the second phase of the Chunin exams, all but a few showing obvious signs of battle. Before them stood the Hokage along with Anko, Ibiki, and a sickly-looking Jounin. Behind them were the Jounin senseis of the teams that had passed the exam, all standing at attention in the presence of the legendary Sandaime Hokage. Sarutobi's gaze swept across the 7 teams of genin, impressed by the unusual turnout. For so many to have passed, most of them being rookies, truly impressive. Glancing over his shoulder at his 4 most prominent Jounin, he smirked around his pipe. No wonder they nominated them. Turning back to the genin, the Hokage's eyes zeroed in on his adoptive blonde grandson. The boy had his arms crossed in front of his chest, a small smirk playing at the corners of his lips as he waited for what was to come. "Minato, Kushina, you would be proud of your son. He truly is a remarkable shinobi, one that I believe will one day transcend the legends of old." For a brief moment, an image of Naruto's parents seemed to envelope the boy before disappearing, causing the Hokage's smirk to widen slightly. Though he and his shinobi, except those competing, weren't allowed to enter the forest during the exam, the Hokage had other means of keeping track of certain individuals' progress. He had observed Naruto and his team ever since they entered the forest with the use of his crystal ball. He had seen how the three had dealt with the appearance of Orochimaru and later the fight with the Oto Genin. His smirk faltered as he thought of his wayward student and all of the deeds he had committed. He had already increased the patrols around the village, more than doubling the activity of the Anbu within the village's walls. He had also recalled as many shinobi as possible from the field without it looking suspicious. Despite the calm front he put on for the sake of his village and his soldiers, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something that he believed would decide the fate of Konoha when Orochimaru made his move. "Alright you brats, listen up. Hokage-sama will now explain the 3rd stage of the Chunin exams," shouted Anko, breaking the Hokage's morbid thoughts as he refocused on the assembled genin. "Hokage-sama, if you please." "Thank you Anko," said the Sandaime as he blew out a cloud of smoke. "First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you on passing the 2nd stage. You should all be proud. This is the first time in many years that so many promising genin have made it this far in the exam. Now before I tell you about the 3rd exam, there is something you should know about these exams." Seeing that he had their attention, he went on to explain about how the exams were the substitute for war between the countries and how they were used as a means of displaying a country and village's strength to the other nations. Now, as to the 3rd test itself. Before he could continue, the sickly Jounin appeared kneeling in front of his Kage. "Forgive me, Hokage-sama," he said, "but please, as the proctor for the third exam, allow me to take things from here?" "Of course," the veteran Kage said as he took a puff of his pipe. Nodding once, the Jounin stood and faced the 7 teams of genin, his features reaffirming that he was indeed ill. "Hello everyone, my name is Hey-8 Gecko, the proctor for the final stage. Before we get to that, however, I'm afraid we must have a preliminary round to determine who shall participate in the main event." Surprising to those who knew him, Shikamaru was the one to react. "Preliminary? What the hell do we need a preliminary for?" Hey coughed a few times into his hand before answering, "Because so many of you have made it this far, we must hold a preliminary in accordance with the rules of the exams. As Hokage-sama pointed out, many influential individuals will be present for the final rounds and we cannot afford to waste their time. So to reduce the number of contestants and to ensure only the best are allowed to move on, we will hold a preliminary round right here and now. However, if there are any of you who don't feel up to the challenge, you may withdraw from the competition now." Only one genin raised their hand and Naruto's eyes narrowed when he saw that it belonged to Kabuto. "I'm out, I don't have enough chakra left to compete." Hey-8 made a note on a file he pulled out of his flak jacket before dismissing Kabuto. Naruto and his team knew something wasn't right as they watched the silver-haired genin exit the arena. "Out of chakra my ass," thought Naruto, "it doesn't even seem like he used any chakra at all while he was in the forest. I have a bad feeling about all of this, I have to speak with Hokage Gigi as soon as possible." "Anko," began Hey-8, bringing everyone's attention back to the matter at hand. The snake mistress nodded and spoke into the headset she was wearing, causing a panel on the wall to rise, revealing a hidden monitor underneath. "This board will display the participants for every match. I know it's sudden, but we will choose the first 2 fighters now. Those 2 shall remain here while the rest of you make your way to the observation platforms with your respective jounins. Now, let's begin the selection." Naruto and the other participating genin watched as the board cycled through random names before finally stopping on the first 2 combatants. "Will Shino Aburame and Misumi Tsurugi step forward, please?" The ever-stoic Aburame stepped around his 2 teammates and moved to stand across from one of Kabuto's teammates. Misumi was dressed exactly like the other members of his team, a purple full bodysuit with a tan obi around his waist. He also had a purple mask that hung around his face, obscuring everything but his glass-covered eyes from view. "If the rest of you could please relocate to the observation platforms, we can begin," Hey-8 said as everyone started making their way towards the 2 platforms that overlooked the arena. Once everyone was clear, Hey-8 looked between the 2 boys before coughing a few times. "Now then, this will be an all-out fight, anything and everything goes, understand?" The 2 genin nodded. "Good, the match is over when one of you is either knocked out, forfeits or dies. I may step in during the match and declare a winner to avoid any unnecessary killing. Are both fighters ready?" Again the 2 genin merely nodded, already sizing each other up and preparing the best way to attack. "Very well, the first match." "Hajime," said Hey-8 as he swung his arm down before jumping away to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. "I will give you one chance to surrender. You cannot hope to defeat me once I unleash my technique," said Misumi, shifting into a loose taijutsu stance. Shino's only response was to pull his left hand out of his pocket and let it hang at his side. Misumi glared at the Aburame heir before launching himself at the stoic genin. "Cocky little bastard, do you honestly think a rookie like you can defeat me?" The purple-clad genin swung his left arm in an attempt to hit Shino with the side of his fist, but it was blocked by Shino's arm coming up and blocking with his forearm. Before Shino could counter, Misumi's arm and body suddenly began to wrap around his person, holding him in place. "I told you, now give up before I'm forced to break your neck," the bespectacled shinobi grunted as he tightened his rubber-like arm around Shino's neck. Assuming one's superiority to another and declaring victory before the true fight has even begun, a truly foolish belief, said Shino, not showing any signs that the threat had affected him. Misumi growled in frustration before jerking his right arm slightly, causing a loud snapping sound to reverberate throughout the arena. Most of the rookie genin's eyes widened as they watched Shino's head fall limp. Hinata appeared to be on the verge of tears while Kiba had a look of disbelief on his face. Ino, Shikamaru and Shoji were shocked that one of their fellow rookies had just been killed by another Konoha genin. Sakura looked slightly worried, but when Naruto, Sasuke, and even Kakashi didn't show any reaction, she knew that things weren't as they seemed and the tide of battle was about to shift. "Fool," mumbled Misumi as he began to unravel himself from the dead body. He had just loosened his grip on the neck when Shino's body suddenly dissolved into countless insects. "What the?" he began, but he stopped short as he felt his chakra rapidly leaving his body as the insects swarmed around him. The last thing the older genin saw before he slipped into unconsciousness was Shino appearing across from him, completely unharmed. Heiei sighed as he watched the swarm of bugs leave Misumi's body and return to Shino. Even though he is young, he fights with the cunning and ruthlessness of a seasoned shinobi. To be expected of the Aburame heir. Winner of the first match, Shino Aburame, he said as the medics came and carted the unconscious Misumi away. "We will now begin the selection for the second match." As the screen cycled through names again, Shino silently rejoined his team. "Good job, Shino, you handled yourself well in that fight. Not many of your fellow rookies could have handled that situation as well as you did." "Thank you, Kurenai-sensei," he said in his usual monotone, "but I'm afraid you are mistaken." Kurenai raised an eyebrow in surprise while Kiba and Hinata looked at their teammate, silently asking him to explain. "There are two genin among this year's rookies that could have easily defeated my opponent without much effort. They are by far the most skilled from our class and I doubt I would be able to defeat them should I face them in combat." "Well, come on Shino, spit it out." "Who are these two?" asked Kiba, arrogantly thinking that he was one of the two, with Sasuke most likely being the other. The three other teams on the balcony with them had silently been listening in, but now they all turned their full attention to the bug user, except Team 7, who continued to watch the screen shuffling through the names. "They are Sasuke Uchiha," he said, confirming what many of the others had suspected, but only those who had witnessed it in the forest believed the second name, and Naruto Uzumaki. "What? You honestly expect me to believe that Naruto, the dead last, is that strong?" "I can understand Sasuke, but Naruto?" yelled Kiba in surprise. He may have been Naruto's friend when they were younger, but his pride wouldn't allow him to believe that Naruto could possibly be that strong. Hinata didn't say anything, she just glanced at Naruto and felt a blush spread across her cheeks as she took in his new appearance. She had always known he was good-looking, something that no other girl had ever taken the time to see, but his new outfit combined with the aura he had about him nearly caused the young girl to faint. Everyone's attention was drawn back to the matter at hand as the board beeped, signaling the selection had been made. "Will Sasuke Uchiha and Kankuro no Sabaku please come down," said Heiei before coughing into his hand. Sasuke smirked as he prepared to jump down to the arena before a hand on his shoulder stopped him. Turning to the owner of the hand, Sasuke saw Naruto with a serious expression on his face. "What's up, Naruto?" Naruto glanced over at the Suna team and saw Kankuro leisurely walking towards the stairs to the arena. "Do not underestimate him, Sasuke. If I'm right about the type of technique he uses, you can't afford to let your guard down." Sasuke and Sakura had learned quickly that Naruto was far more observant than he let on. In the week they had spent together before the exams, Naruto had scarcely been wrong in his observations. So if he believed that Sasuke's opponent was not to be underestimated, then it probably was so. Sasuke nodded as a look of determination appeared in his eyes. "Don't worry, I won't let that happen." After all, a small smirk spread across his lips as he met Naruto's gaze. "You owe me a rematch from our last spar, and I plan on having it in the finals." Smirk of his own formed as Naruto took his hand off of Sasuke's shoulder and held it up in front of his face. Sasuke brought his own hand up and clasped it with Naruto's. "Couldn't have said it better myself, Sasuke team." Lowering their hands, the two shinobi shared one last smirk before Sasuke jumped down into the arena and faced an irate-looking Kankuro. "About time you got down here. I was beginning to think you'd forfeit," said Kankuro, trying to get a rise out the last Uchiha. Sasuke's smirk never wavered as he stared down his opponent, as if an Uchiha never backs down from a fight. Knowing that if the banter kept up, one of the boys would eventually lose it and attack the other, Heiei stepped forward and raised his arm. "Are both fighters ready?" he asked, though he and everyone else already knew the answer. Receiving two nods, Heiei swung his arm down and jumped away. "The second match. Hajime." Sasuke didn't waste a second. Before Hay-8 was even clear, he pulled out a kunai and threw it at the black-clad genin. Not expecting such a preemptive attack from the Konoha genin, Kankuro barely managed to dodge the kunai as it sailed past his head. Caught off guard and unbalanced, the Suna genin couldn't defend against the follow-up and received a strong punch to the face because of it. Not letting up in his assault, Sasuke dropped to the ground and tried to sweep Kankuro's legs out from under him. Luckily for Kankuro, he managed to regain enough of his senses to jump over the leg sweep and retaliate with a kick of his own. Taking a page out of the old Naruto's book of doing the unexpected, Sasuke substituted himself with the wrapped object on Kankuro's back, allowing it to take the kick instead. Kankuro could only widen his eyes when he felt the splintering of wood beneath his foot, instead of the squishing of flesh. Taking advantage of his opponent's distraction, Sasuke grabbed onto the back of Kankuro's shirt and threw him over his shoulder towards one of the walls. Remembering Naruto's advice, Sasuke quickly jumped away from the partially revealed puppet, just in time to avoid being skewered by a barrage of sunban. Knowing that he would be in trouble if was caught by surprise with one of those attacks, Sasuke channeled chakra into his eyes and activated his Sharingan, wincing as the curse seal tried to spread and take over. "No, I won't let this thing control me," thought the black-haired genin as images of his teammates flashed in his mind, reinforcing his will and repressing the tainted power of the mark. Disguised as the sensei of the Oto team, Orochimaru's eyes widened in surprise as he watched Sasuke suppress his curse seal with willpower alone, but his surprise quickly turned into a predatory smirk. "To be able to resist the power of the cursed seal, you will truly be the perfect vessel for my next body, Sasuke-kun." Standing behind her leader, Anko was in a state of disbelief as Sasuke suppressed the seal. She had felt the spike of the tainted chakra through her own cursed seal and had almost intervened when Sasuke had forced the mark to recede, the curses receding? How the hell did he manage to stop it? Kankuro cursed when his attack missed. How the hell did he know to dodge? He didn't have his Sharingan activated and he wasn't even facing Karasu, so how the hell did he dodge? Picking himself up from where he had landed on the ground, Kankuro twitched his fingers and Karasu appeared in front of him, free of the bandages that were wrapped around him. "I don't know how you did that, but it won't happen again." With a few movements of his fingers, all four of Karasu's arms opened at the elbow. The top two arms fired a small purple ball each at the Uchiha's feet while the remaining two unleashed a wave of Senbon. Thanks to his Sharingan, Sasuke noticed the liquid coating the needles and immediately knew that Naruto had been right. "Poison, no wonder Naruto told me to keep my guard up. One little scratch and it's all over," he thought as he jumped away, avoiding the Senbon and just clearing the range of the poison smoke cloud. Unfortunately, Kankuro wasn't being lax in his efforts to kill the last Uchiha and moved Karasu in close to Sasuke, poison-tipped blades extending from each arm. It was only thanks to his dojutsu that Sasuke managed to avoid each of the blade's attempts at cutting and piercing him. Seeing an opening in the puppet's attacks, Sasuke jumped back to get some distance and threw two handfuls of shuriken in a wide arc around the puppet. Kankuro smirked seeing the weapons completely miss his puppet, but it quickly vanished when he noticed that they were aimed at him instead. Jumping into the air to avoid the lethal stars, the Suna genin cursed as he felt his strings attached to Karasu loosen slightly. "Damn it, he's attacking me directly to lessen my control over Karasu," thought Kankuro as he landed safely on the floor of the arena. His respite was cut short when Sasuke appeared behind him and kicked him towards his puppet. "Fool," thought Kankuro as he flipped in midair and landed on his feet next to his puppet. "For a moment there I thought he might have figured out how to counter a puppeteer, but it looks like..." An explosion cut off Kankuro's thoughts as he was blown into the wall on the far side of the arena. His body riddled with pieces of shrapnel, from splinters to the broken remains of Karasu's blades. Sasuke smirked as he saw the results of the paper bomb he had placed on the puppet. "You shouldn't have let your guard down. You assumed that just because you were the one controlling that puppet, there was no way it could be used to attack you. It seems you were wrong." Kankuro struggled to lift his head enough to see his unscathed opponent and forced out, "How?" Sasuke walked over to his discarded shuriken and placed all of them back into their proper holster. "The shuriken were just a distraction to keep your mind and attention off of your puppet. While you were in the air and focused on the shuriken, I hit a paper bomb under your puppet's cloak. When you didn't immediately call the puppet back to you, I took matters into my own hands and forced you closer to it and let the bomb handle the rest. That was the last thing Kankuro heard before he lost consciousness and slumped back into the wall. Sasuke jumped back up to his team just as the medics arrived to take Kankuro away. You may want to hurry and get him treated, those blades were laced with poison. The three medics immediately rushed Kankuro out of the arena and to the infirmary to be treated. It may have been in the context of the Chunin exams, but if one of the Kazekage's sons died while in their care, it could lead to some political trouble for the village. Good work, Sasuke, said Kakashi with an eye smile. You won the battle, yet you didn't reveal much of what you are truly capable of. That will give you an edge over the rest of the competition in the finals. Unless of course, you face one of us, Sakura said, a challenging smirk on her face. You may want to have your rematch with Naruto here during the finals, but if either of you two ends up fighting me, you may not get the chance. We shall see, Sakura, we shall see, said Naruto as he crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. Though I must admit, it would be interesting to see how we all fare against one another in an all-out fight. We have only ever sparred against one another under Kakashi-sensei's watch, and he never allows us to go full power on each other. With good reason. If the three of you were to engage in an all-out fight with one another, the results of the fight would be uncharacteristically similar to those left by two Jonin engaging one another. That is a repair bill I would rather not have to pay, Kakashi said, shivering at the thought of having to pay that much to repair their training ground. It was at that moment that Asuma, Guy, and Kurenai, who had been listening in on the conversation, decided to speak up. Really, Kakashi, you believe that the three of them fighting each other would result in damage similar to two Jonin? Your students may indeed be youthful, but even I have to doubt the truth of that claim. Asuma and Kurenai both voiced their agreement with Guy's assumption. They may have heard of what Naruto and Sakura were capable of from Ino when she arrived, and Sasuke's skills had always been top-notch. All three would quite possibly be Chunin by the end of the exam, but comparing them to Jonin standards was something else entirely. Guy has a point, Kakashi, said Asuma as he blew out a cloud of smoke. No one can argue that your students don't have skill, probably enough so to become Chunin. But you know better than most that the gap between Chunin and Jonin is vast. To even suggest that three Genin, no matter how skilled, fighting would have similar results as two Jonin fighting is ridiculous. You shouldn't inflate their egos by making such a bold claim. It will only lead them to being arrogant in battle and getting themselves killed. Kakashi frowned as he faced his fellow Jonin, his ever-present smut nowhere to be seen. You could insult him all day and he wouldn't care, but insulting his students and going so far as to say that he was trying to make them arrogant was crossing the line. Perhaps I should be a little more specific with that statement. If the three of them were to fight one another in a three-way, all-out fight, the resulting destruction would easily be the same as that of two rookie Jonin. You forget that my team was designed to be an assault team, so their abilities are more focused to gaining an edge in combat with more destructive force. They and I know the limits of their current power, and it is far from what the four of us are capable of, but be that as it may, I will not stand idly by and let you slander my students by claiming them to be arrogant. From his place on the balcony, the Hokage had heard everything that was being said amongst his four most promising Genin teams. He had seen what Team 7 was capable of, and he had to agree with Kakashi that the results of such a fight would indeed be extensive. However, he couldn't stop the frown that formed at what the other Jonin were saying about his adoptive grandson's team. He understood that they were merely trying to act in the best interest of the Genin. Asuma's claim of Genin becoming arrogant about such things held merit, but then again, he didn't know the full extent of Team 7's capabilities. Kakashi's response was as he had expected, but his eyes widened when he recognized the tone in Kakashi's voice. He had only heard that tone once before when two newly promoted Chunin insulted Naruto within earshot of the copy ninja. The two fools had spent 2 months in the hospital and had been forced to retire early from Konoha's ranks as the injuries Kakashi had inflicted on the two were too severe for them to continue as ninja. Just as he was about to interfere, lest the four Jonin end up in a war with one another, Naruto's voice cut through the tension in the air. Kakashi-sensei, the cycloptic Jonin turned to his blonde student, his anger at his fellow Jonin shining in his lone eye. Ignore them. Everyone within hearing range registered shock at the blonde's statement, though the undertone in his voice almost made it seem like an order. My fellow Genin will have to forgive me for this, but I feel this must be said. Your senseis have the audacity to question mine and my teammates' skills, even though they do not know or understand the true extent what we are capable of. Kakashi is the only Jounin in this room who knows what we can do, and as our sensei it is his right to make such a claim if he believes it to be true. Turning his head to look at the three Jounin in question, he fixed each of them with a glare that almost made them flinch. Given that, it seems that it is not we who are in danger of becoming arrogant, but the three of you who have become arrogant in your own power. The three senseis were shocked to hear this coming from a genin, but no matter how they tried to argue the fact, the points the boy had made were all true. Though they wouldn't admit it aloud, the reason for their rather unprovoked reaction to Kakashi's claim was because of their pride in their own teams. Asuma and Kurenai had been training their teams for the same amount of time as Kakashi had been training his, and while they were both confident their teams could take on an elite Chunin together, they were far from facing off against a Jounin on their own. Guy had trained his team for over a year, and while he himself may have believed his students could do much the same as Kakashi's, he was not one to voice it for fear of them becoming arrogant, or more so in the case of Niji, should they hear it. That Kakashi was openly willing to say something like that to his team had gotten under his skin, as he felt his rival was trying to make his students believe they were stronger than they were, something he had always strived to prevent, not only in his own team but in other genin as well. Their students couldn't help but agree with Naruto, even if only for the fact that their teachers passed judgment without proper knowledge. One thing that had been drilled into them in the academy was to never assume something, and that was exactly what their teachers had done. Team 10, and more specifically Ino, wholeheartedly agreed with Naruto. They may have seen some of what the members of Team 7 were capable of in the forest, but that was as individuals, and they were sure they hadn't even seen half of that. Now their sensei was questioning Team 7's abilities as a whole without even understanding what they were capable of on their own. Well, now that that matter is settled, shall we continue with the preliminaries? I think everyone has been given sufficient thoughts to ponder for the time being, said the Hokage as he nodded to Heiei to begin the next selection. The board immediately began running through names again before stopping on the next two combatants. Will Kiba Inuzuka and Dosu Kinyuta come down for the third match? Dosu silently made his way down the steps to the arena, while Kiba, with Akamaru at his side, jumped off the balcony, putting his thoughts aside and focusing on the fight at hand. Both fighters ready? Asked Heiei once the two boys were standing in front of him. Dosu and Kiba silently nodded, with Akamaru giving a bark of his own. Very well. Hajime. Kiba jumped back with Akamaru and slipped into the opening stance for his clan's taijutsu. I don't know how you and your team managed to pass the last exam with two of you being handicapped, but you won't be going any further. Forming the tiger seal to focus his chakra, Kiba bent down and placed his hands on the ground, for legs jutsu. His naturally animalistic features became even more feral, with his nails lengthening into claws and his teeth becoming fangs. I may be missing an arm, but a shinobi is never without tricks, said Dosu as he raised left arm above his head and let his sleeve fall down, revealing a new melody arm attached to it. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the Oto Genin. He had studied the gauntlet he severed along with Dosu's arm and had a rough idea of how he manipulated the sound vibrations it produced. Dosu, he shouted, catching everyone off guard, I should warn you, I know how your technique works. If you so much as try and use it against any of us bystanders, you'll regret it. Dosu's eye widened slightly as his plan of exacting revenge against the blonde failed before he even had a chance to implement it. Damn him, he must have studied the melody arm he took from me. No matter, I'll just have to take it out on this fool, he thought, refocusing on the feral genin before him, only to be forced to jump away as the spinning form of Kiba almost collided with his chest. Kiba stopped his spin in midair and turned to see Dosu charging him with his left arm cocked back. That's right, you dumbass, focus all of your attention on me, thought Kiba, drawing a kunai and moving to meet Dosu halfway. Just before the two were about to collide, a second twister came from the left and nailed the mummified genin in the side. Dosu grunted as he tumbled painfully across the stone floor before managing to right himself and skidding a few feet. Looking back towards his opponent, he mentally cursed when he saw two Kibas rushing him with their claws at the ready. Because of their enhanced senses, Inuzuka should be incredibly susceptible to my attacks, but as long as he and that mutt of his are spinning at those speeds, my vibrations won't reach them. I'll have to strike the moment they end their rotation to have any chance of winning, thought the Oto Genin. Once Kiba and the transformed Akamaru were only a few feet away, they both jumped and began to spin again, preparing to unleash their most powerful technique. "Fong passing Fong," said Kiba's distorted voice as the two drills began a barrage of attacks against the one-armed genin. Dosu, to his credit, managed to avoid quite a few of the Inuzuka duo's attempts at striking him, though he did receive a few injuries in the process. Kiba and Akamaru broke off their attack and both landed on opposite sides of their opponent. Growling in frustration, Kiba pulled out two purple smoke bombs and threw them at Dosu's feet before he and Akamaru began their assault anew. "So he's using his sense of smell to track my position and at the same time removing my ability to see to make it harder to counter." Dosu chuckled slightly as he closed his one eye and listened for the two incoming attacks. Unfortunately, he's not the only one who has other means of finding someone. With that, the two shinobi and one ninkan began their dance of attacking and dodging once again, with Dosu receiving even less injuries as he relied solely on his ears to track the two spinning bodies. Up on the balcony, Naruto, still leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, was examining every aspect of the fight taking place. Both combatants were incredibly skilled despite their rank. Something that could be said for just about all of the genin present, but they both also had a gaping flaw in their fighting styles. Kiba relied solely on his clan's techniques and taijutsu to fight, as well as relying heavily on Akamaru's assistance to overwhelm their opponents. Dosu's fighting style, as he had learned in the forest, revolved completely around manipulating the vibrations produced by his melody arm. Without it, he would probably be completely useless in combat. Naruto sighed quietly so as not to draw the attention of his team. It seemed the two genin thought the same as many shinobi did, that if they trained and mastered a single aspect of the ninja arts, then they could easily defeat an opponent using their advanced abilities in that area. What many failed to realize until they reached at least Jonin rank, however, was that that kind of overspecialization would more often than not lead to them being defeated and forced into a retreat, or even outright killed. It seems that most of our graduating class is more overly specialized than I first thought. I'll have to work on correcting that sooner rather than later, he thought before refocusing on the match just in time to see Kiba and Akamaru finally land two solid blows on Dosu, managing to knock the foreign genin out long enough for Heiei to declare Kiba the winner. "That was a pretty even match," said Sakura from her place standing next to the railing, "though I wonder why that Dosu guy didn't just use his technique right from the beginning. If he had, Kiba and Akamaru would both have been so disoriented they wouldn't have been able to fight." "It's because of the nature of his technique," said Naruto, getting three interested looks from his team. "When I was examining the gauntlet attached to the arm I cut off, I discovered that while it does increase sound vibrations to the fullest, it isn't that effective unless the user and target are in close proximity to one another. The longer the distance, the more chakra one has to use to guide the vibrations and the weaker the vibrations become. From what I can tell, its truly effective range is about 10 feet or less. Looks like their sound techniques aren't as much of a threat as we previously thought," Sasuke said with a smirk as he watched the screen speed through the names of the remaining genin. He was interested to see what both of his teammates were capable of in single combat. He had only woken up after Naruto had defeated the Oto team and he greatly wanted to see what the blonde could do in a real fight instead of a spar. He was also really curious about Sakura's abilities on her own. He had seen how she handled herself against Orochimaru and greatly wanted to see what she could do without his or Naruto's help. "Excellent work, Kiba," said Kurenai as the Inuzuka heir rejoined the rest of Team 8. "Your attacks are getting faster and more ferocious. Though you seemed a little bit desperate to end the match quickly, why was that? Did it have something to do with what that Naruto kid said?" Kiba nodded as he petted Akamaru. "Yeah, that mummy guy was startled by Naruto's warning and he didn't even seem like he was paying attention to me or Akamaru before the fight began. But after what Naruto said, he focused solely on me, like he planned on doing what he couldn't do to Naruto, to me." "Do you really think he would have tried to attack Naruto-kun instead?" asked Hinata, worried about what might have happened to her crush. "It is possible," said Shino, who was talking to a bug on his finger. "My insects detected trace amounts of Naruto-san's chakra on him, meaning he and his team fought against Naruto-san at some point during the second stage. Given their current condition, it seems logical that Naruto was most likely the one to inflict those injuries to them." Hinata's eyes widened slightly at the thought of the Naruto she thought she knew causing such harm to another person. It just didn't seem possible that the bright and smiling blonde she had come to love could be so cruel to anyone, enemy or not. And Naruto-kun wouldn't really do that, would he? She asked, not entirely certain she wanted the answer to that question. Kiba sighed, but nodded. That's probably what happened. Hinata looked to be on the verge of tears at the thought of her Naruto-kun being so cruel. Hinata, I know you like the guy, though I don't understand why, but we have to face facts. That guy had Naruto's scent on him as well, meaning he was more than close enough to him for Naruto to inflict those kinds of injuries. Also, I picked up a faint metallic scent on his right arm, probably from the sword that was used to sever it. Sasuke and Sakura don't have any kind of weapon with them that could cut that cleanly through a human arm, and with his sudden change, we have no idea what Naruto's capable of or what those scrolls are for. I don't like it either, Hinata, but everything points to Naruto being the one who caused the injuries. Kurenai nodded in agreement with her student's analysis, causing a single tear to escape Hinata's eyes. The red-eyed Jonin felt her heart ache at the sight of the girl she thought of as a daughter, obviously in so much pain, but she needed to learn the darker side of the ninja life, no matter how much Kurenai wanted to keep her protected from it. The board beeping again drew everyone's attention as they looked to see who would be fighting next. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes narrowed before they looked at each other and silently nodded. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and focused solely on the arena, ready to commit everything about the next match to memory. At the same time, Naruto glanced a little ways down the balcony and spotted the smirking form of Neji Hyuga. From the cards they stole from Kabuto before the first exam, they knew that his skills, like his teammates, centered solely on the concepts of taijutsu and hand-to-hand combat. His card also had a note that people called him the Hyuga prodigy, one of the most powerful and gifted people to ever come from the revered clan. Time to see what this guy is capable of, thought Naruto as Neji slowly made his way towards the steps. One could almost feel the arrogance coming off of his body in waves. So that's Neji Hyuga, said Sakura with frown. It seems his abilities have gone straight to his head. He has an even bigger ego than you did, Sasuke. Kakashi couldn't hold in his snort as he tried to repress his laughter, and Naruto smirked slightly at what his pink-haired teammate said. Sasuke's only indication that he heard Sakura was a light punch to the girl's arm. His eyes focused solely on the two genin standing across from Hei-8. Managing to regain his composure, Kakashi cleared his throat slightly before focusing on the coming match as well. That may be Sakura, but his arrogance does have some weight behind it. From what Guy has told me, Neji has never been defeated in close quarters combat even once. If any of you end up facing him in the finals, your best bet at defeating him is to use long-range techniques. The three genin nodded in understanding as they waited for the match to begin. Hei-8 looked at the two boys standing in front of him. Yoroi Akato and Neji Hyuga, are the two of you ready? Yoroi silently nodded while Neji merely folded his arms across his chest. Very well then, the fourth match of the preliminaries, Hajime. Misumi might have lost against one of you rookies, but I learn from people's mistakes. I suggest you surrender while you're still able to, Hyuga. Neji didn't give any outward reaction except to slip into the opening stance for his family's taijutsu. Have it your way then, Yoroi said before he charged the Hyuga prodigy, his right hand igniting with chakra. Once he was in range, Yoroi tried to grab a hold of the pale-eyed boy, only for his arm to fall limp at his side. What? He shouted just before he was silenced by a flurry of palm and finger strikes from his opponent, sending him into blissful unconsciousness. Crossing his arms in front of his chest again, Neji looked at the unconscious body lying at his feet. Pathetic, he said, to think that you even had a chance at defeating me, a prodigy, foolish. Fate had already determined the outcome of this match, trying to defy it is pointless. With that, he turned and started making his way back towards the steps to rejoin his team. Up on the balcony, Naruto had his eyes narrowed into a glare as he watched the pompous genin leave the arena. It was because of that attitude that he had such a strong dislike of the Hyuga clan. They believed that because of their precious Byakugan that they were above all others, that they deserved to be treated as some form of royalty. Man, now I see why you used to get so pissed at me, Naruto. Did I really act that bad? Asked Sasuke, bringing Naruto out of his dark thoughts about the Hyuga clan. No, said Naruto with a small shake of his head, you were never that bad, but you still managed to get under my skin by acting like you were better than others at times. Sasuke nodded in understanding and made a silent promise to himself and his team that he would never travel down that road again. Anyway, did you manage to get anything out of that fight? Unfortunately, no, said the dark-haired genin as his features slowly morphed into a scowl. All I managed to see was that Yoroi guy's chakra didn't move normally. It almost seemed to form a vacuum of some sorts in the palm of his hand. Sakura furrowed her brow in confusion while Kakashi's lone eye widened slightly. You said his chakra formed a vacuum of sorts in his hands, asked the copynin, wanting to make sure he heard correctly. At the Sasuke's nod, Kakashi let out a sigh. Then I suppose it was a good thing none of you had to fight him. Why's that, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sakura. Because that boy has a leeching ability. The three genin each raised an eyebrow in confusion, prompting Kakashi to explain further. It is a rare ability that allows someone to siphon off another person's chakra, and should they become advanced enough with the ability, manipulate that stolen chakra and add it to their own reserves. Sasuke and Sakura's eyes widened at the prospect of such an ability, while Naruto glanced at the unconscious genin being carted away by the medics, a frown marring his face. Now I'm certain of it, their entire team must be some kind of enemy plant. First that Kabuto guy has classified information on the participants, and now both of his teammates possess two unique abilities? That can't be a coincidence, thought the blonde as he glanced over at the balcony along the other wall. The only people left on the balcony were the Suna team, minus Kankuro, and the Oto team they had fought in the Forest of Death. As his eyes passed over the Oto team's sensei, his sensory abilities registered the thick, evil chakra he felt from Orochimaru in the forest. So he's here, he must be pretty confident in himself to make such a bold move, especially with the Hokage present. Be on guard, he said in a whisper so only his team could hear him. The three other members of Team 7 jumped slightly at the sudden sound of Naruto's voice, but their brows furrowed in confusion once they registered what he had said. He's here, he said just as softly. Orochimaru has infiltrated the tower. The two genin and one jounin stiffened at the blonde's words, but quickly relaxed their posture so as not to cause suspicion. Where is he, Naruto? Asked Kakashi as he swept his gaze across the entire arena. He's disguised himself as the Oto team's sensei and he's suppressing his chakra to normal jounin levels so as not to give himself away. But that still doesn't explain why the Hokage hasn't sensed his presence and done something about it. He should know Orochimaru's chakra signature better than anyone, whether he's a sensor or not, said Naruto, his eyes narrowing in suspicion towards the end. Kakashi flicked his gaze towards the disguised Sannin for a brief moment, before returning to his blonde pupil. Unfortunately, Naruto, he is very much aware of Orochimaru's presence, he said, causing his three students' eyes to widen. Then why hasn't he done something? Isn't martial law supposed to be implemented at the very sight of that man? Asked Sakura in a whispered shout. Sasuke nodded his agreement with the pink-haired Kunoichi while Naruto glanced towards the Hokage. At first glance, he appeared to be his normal serene, kind-hearted self, no sense of worry or tension in his body. But that was to those who didn't know the man, and even though he hadn't spent much time in the man's presence since he began his training with Jiraiya, he knew all of the veteran Kage's tells for when he was hiding something thanks to his godfather. The fact that he stopped smoking his pipe after the first match for no apparent reason, as the man always had spare tobacco with him, was his first hint that something was off with the Sandame. There were a few other subtle things that no one would have given a second thought about, but the one thing that confirmed Kakashi's statement was the subtle way the old man was flexing his chakra. It was something no one would be able to notice unless they were a natural sensor or had extensive experience in the art, the way his chakra moved, almost as if he was stretching it, loosening it up in case he was required to use it at a moment's notice. Kakashi-sensei's right, he said, interrupting his teammates' quiet argument with, "There's sensei." Sasuke and Sakura turned to him, their shock and disbelief of the situation clearly visible. I don't know why he hasn't done anything about it, but he must have his reasons. For now, let's just focus all of our energy on these preliminaries and make sure we all make it to the finals. Once we have done that, we can speak with the Hokage about what happened in the forest and try and pry some answers out of him at the same time. Though the idea of just ignoring Orochimaru being in the same room as them wasn't exactly appealing, the two genin of Team 7 slowly nodded their consent and refocused on the next match. That was about to begin. They had been so caught up in their own conversation that they hadn't even heard Hey 8 announce the participants. Sakura's eyes widened slightly as she immediately put the thoughts of Orochimaru out of her mind for the time being, focusing solely on the match about to take place. It's Ino's turn? I hope she can pull out a win here. I would like to face her in the finals if I had the chance. Naruto chuckled as he too focused on his fellow blonde that was about to go into battle. I hope she wins too, she has more potential than even she knows.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.